Deep in the forests of Oregon, the mist rolls thick and heavy. Some paths are not on any map. Some villages vanish when the sun rises. Of lanterns swinging in empty streets. Of doors opening and closing without a sound. Of distant laughter that chills the blood. And of shadows that move faster than the eye can follow. Tonight, we venture into the most haunted foggy forest villages in Oregon hidden from maps. Are you ready to walk among places where the living rarely return? Hello, dear friend. I hope you are having a calm and peaceful evening. And I am truly glad to share this journey with you. Oregon's forests are dense, mysterious, and ancient. Beneath their canopy lie villages lost to time and memory. Some were never found on official records. And some hide secrets that still whisper in the fog. In these villages, the air is cold even in summer. The streets are silent except for the sound of distant footsteps. Some travelers report seeing figures in windows, even when no one lives there. Others hear doors creak and close while they are alone. And a few claim the mist itself seems alive, shifting and guiding visitors toward unknown destinations. Before we enter these hidden villages, here is a question for you. Take a deep breath. Relax your mind. And let the fog draw you into its hidden world. Mist Hollow sits quietly in a narrow valley, shrouded by rolling hills and thick morning fog that never fully lifts. Its streets are narrow and cobblestone, lined with aging buildings whose facades are worn by time and weather. Lanterns hang from iron brackets along the sidewalks, their flames flickering gently despite the absence of any noticeable breeze. They seem to pulse with life, as if waiting for someone to arrive and bring the village to its proper rhythm. Travelers who stumble upon Mist Hollow often describe an immediate sense of stillness, a quiet that presses in from all sides. The village seems paused between moments, frozen yet alive, where the wind carries secrets that brush against the skin. Footsteps echo unnaturally along empty streets, and every creak of a shutter or groan of timber is amplified, drawing attention to the smallest detail. Windows of the buildings are dark, yet occasionally shadows appear behind them. Figures move just beyond the glass, visible for an instant before vanishing when approached. Some travelers report seeing entire shapes pacing behind curtains, or brief flashes of motion that suggest someone is standing just inside, watching. The effect is disorienting, creating a sense that Mist Hollow is aware of every presence and responds subtly to the gaze of those who enter. Cold gusts of wind sweep through the alleys, carrying faint whispers that seem to call the visitor by name. The voice is soft, intimate, yet impossible to trace. Those who hear it feel a mixture of fear and curiosity. Compelled to move further into the village. Drawn by the inexplicable pull of something both unseen and familiar. The architecture amplifies the eerie atmosphere. Narrow alleyways twist unpredictably, leading to small courtyards or dead ends that appear suddenly. Wooden doors are weathered and chipped, some hanging slightly ajar as if inviting entry, while others remain closed with an unspoken warning. The cobblestone streets are uneven, causing footsteps to shift rhythmically and echo in unexpected patterns. Every sound in Mist Hollow seems amplified and alive, a response to the presence of a visitor. Lantern light shifts with no apparent source of wind, casting moving shadows that crawl along walls and across streets. Trees and shrubs sway gently in the fog, though the air is otherwise still. Travelers describe the sensation of being observed, of eyes tracking them from places just out of reach. Occasionally, fleeting glimpses of figures appear in alleyways or around corners, only to vanish when the observer moves closer. The village feels suspended between worlds, neither fully alive nor fully abandoned. Holding fragments of memory that resist explanation. Buildings that appear solid and empty often hide details that reveal subtle life. A rocking chair may sway slightly on a porch. A window curtain flutters as if disturbed by a passing hand. Or a faint scent of food drifts from a kitchen that has been silent for decades. The interplay of stillness and subtle activity creates an atmosphere that is immersive, unsettling, and captivating. As night deepens, the fog thickens and lanterns glow brighter against the darkness. Shadows lengthen and stretch unnaturally, sometimes separating from the buildings that cast them. Whispers become more distinct, forming half-formed words or fragments of sentences that seem directed at each visitor personally. Footsteps echo without source, and doors creak open slowly, as if moved by invisible hands. The village exists in a heightened state of awareness, responding to sound, movement, and even thought. Travelers often report a sense of timelessness while in Mist Hollow. Minutes stretch and compress unpredictably, creating disorientation that is both fascinating and unnerving. The interplay of fog, shadow, and whispering wind amplifies perception, making every detail feel meaningful. Lanterns flicker as though in rhythm with a heartbeat, drawing attention to every shifting shadow, every corner that might hold a fleeting glimpse of another presence. By dawn, the village quiets as the fog begins to lift. Shadows retreat into corners and the whispers fade with the wind. Travelers leave with a lingering sensation of being watched, remembered, and touched by a place that exists beyond ordinary perception. Mist Hollow is more than a village. It is a living memory. A space where time bends. Shadows hold secrets. And the wind carries voices that are never entirely gone. Mist Hollow waits patiently in the valley, its lanterns flickering and streets ready to welcome the next traveler. Every gust of wind, every shifting shadow, and every whispered name is part of a delicate balance. A reminder that some places are alive in ways that defy conventional understanding. In the stillness of the fog, the village endures, a quiet testament to memory, mystery, and the subtle pull of the unknown. Hollow Pines is a village tucked deep within a dense forest of towering pines. Their dark green needles forming a canopy that blocks much of the daylight. The village itself is small, its cobblestone streets winding between weathered houses and empty courtyards. Visitors who arrive often describe the sensation of being watched, though no one is visibly present. Footsteps echo along the cobblestone paths, light and deliberate, yet when travelers follow the sound, they find only silence. The echoes seem to come from multiple directions at once, weaving through alleys and empty squares. The sound lingers, bouncing off walls and roofs, as if the village itself remembers the presence of those who once walked here. It is a quiet that is not entirely empty, a stillness that hums with life just beyond perception. Houses in Hollow Pines are old, their facades cracked and worn by time. Roofs sag slightly, and the windows are dark and dusty. Yet at night, lights sometimes appear inside. These glows are faint at first, flickering like candle flames. As the evening deepens, the lights grow steadier, illuminating interiors that should be empty. Silhouettes move past windows, fleeting and indistinct, leaving viewers with only the impression of life that no longer exists. Locals who speak of Hollow Pines describe its history as both ordinary and strange. The village was once a thriving settlement, its population tending the forest and surrounding lands for generations. Stories tell of a sudden decline, of families leaving one by one, until only memories and abandoned homes remained. Yet the village never fully died. Some suggest that the spirits of those who once lived there remain, bound to the cobblestones and the wooden beams, carrying on routines unseen by the living. Visitors often report a sensation of being followed or accompanied. A shadow may pass along the edge of their vision, or the faintest reflection in a window suggests a figure walking behind them. When they turn, nothing is there. The village seems to stretch beyond what is physically possible. Streets curve in ways that disorient, courtyards appear larger than their entrances suggest, and the pines themselves seem to lean in, listening to every step. The ambient sounds of the forest amplify the village's mysterious atmosphere. Wind rustles through the pine needles, creating a chorus of whispers that blend with the echoes of footsteps. An owl may call from the treetops, yet its cry carries unusually far, bouncing off walls and roofs. Even the distant babble of a creek is magnified, sounding as though it flows through the heart of the village itself. Every sound feels deliberate, drawing attention to the small details of a place that refuses to remain ordinary. At night, the village transforms. The cobblestones glint faintly under the moonlight, and shadows stretch unnaturally. Across streets and courtyards, windows glow with movement, as if the homes themselves are alive. Silhouettes flicker past curtains. Chairs shift slightly, and doors appear ajar one moment and closed the next. The effect is subtle, a quiet haunting that lingers in the imagination of anyone observing. Cameras and recording equipment have captured unusual activity within hollow pines. Footage shows shadows moving independently of light sources. Doors opening and closing without human touch. Faint indistinct figures crossing empty streets. Audio captures soft footsteps, whispered voices, and the creak of floorboards in houses that have long been abandoned. While the events are not overtly threatening, they suggest a persistence of presence, a continuation of life beyond what is physically possible. Despite its eerie qualities, Hollow Pines draws those with curiosity and courage. Historians, photographers, and travelers alike come to witness the subtle movements and to experience the village's unique atmosphere. Each visitor leaves with impressions that linger. Memories of silhouettes in windows, the echo of footsteps, and the sense of a world both familiar and impossibly distant. The village feels like a liminal space, a threshold between the ordinary and the extraordinary. Even from the edges of the forest, Hollow Pines exudes a quiet pull. The tall pines sway and groan, guiding travelers along paths that seem almost intentional. The lights in the abandoned houses flicker like distant stars, drawing attention to stories that exist only in shadow and reflection. The cobblestone streets carry the weight of countless steps, each one leaving an imprint in memory even if no trace remains in reality. Hollow Pines is not a place to be rushed through. Its atmosphere demands observation, patience, and awareness. Every detail, from the shifting shadows to the faint light in windows, contributes to a narrative that is both haunting and beautiful. Visitors come seeking stories and leave with impressions that defy easy explanation, a sense that they have glimpsed a world that continues just beyond perception. Next time a road winds through a dense forest and a small village emerges through the trees, the cobblestones may echo with footsteps that no one walks, lights may glow in houses long abandoned, and fleeting silhouettes may appear, moving as if time has never truly left them. The village exists at the intersection of memory and mystery. A place where the ordinary rules of life are suspended, and where every shadow tells a story waiting to be discovered. Fog Crest is a village that appears only when the mist is thick, hanging low over the hills like a shroud. Travelers who stumble upon it speak of an eerie stillness, as though the land itself is holding its breath. The fog clings to the narrow streets, curling around the rooftops of small cottages and the gabled facades of forgotten shops. Visibility is low, yet the outlines of the village are sharp enough to suggest life, even though none can be found. The village seems suspended in time. Wooden doors swing on rusted hinges, and windows rattle as if stirred by unseen hands. No one walks the streets, yet the sounds are unmistakable. Steps echo on cobblestones that are worn smooth, and the occasional slam of a door or creak of floorboards punctuates the heavy silence. Visitors report feeling as though they are being observed, though no eyes meet theirs and no faces appear. Fog Crest exudes a strange atmosphere, a combination of tranquility and tension. The window shutter rattles in the wind, and a bell in the tower tolls faintly, though the building appears empty. The village feels alive in its absence of people, as if it is sustaining its own presence, independent of human life. Paths wind between the houses, leading to corners where the fog thickens, hiding what lies beyond. Gardens, once tended, now grow wild with ivy and brambles. Yet the air carries the faint scent of flowers, fresh and undisturbed. The juxtaposition of neglect and preservation is one of the village's most puzzling qualities. Visitors often linger in these spaces, compelled to explore yet wary of what they might find. Even the architecture seems to resist ordinary explanation. Buildings are quaint and familiar, yet certain angles and lines appear slightly distorted, as if the village is bending subtly to accommodate the fog. Roofs tilt at improbable angles, and windows reflect shapes that do not exist outside their panes. It is a place where perception is tested, where the mind struggles to reconcile what is seen with what is known. Footsteps echo along the streets, though no one is present. Doors slam as if greeting or warning an intruder, and shutters bang lightly in rhythm with invisible winds. Visitors report fleeting glimpses of movement, a shadow passing behind a curtain or a figure glimpsed in the corner of an alley, only to vanish when looked at directly. The fog both conceals and reveals, creating an environment of perpetual uncertainty. The village seems protective of itself. Some theorize that the fog is a barrier, shielding the community from outsiders. Maps provide no guidance, and compasses sometimes falter, spinning with strange resistance. Those who attempt to linger too long often feel a subtle pressure, a suggestion that the village prefers to remain untouched by the outside world. Sounds are layered and deceptive in Fogcrest. The wind carries murmurs that cannot be identified, a mixture of echoes and imagined voices. Occasionally, a faint melody drifts through the streets, reminiscent of a song once familiar but now impossible to recall fully. The auditory landscape reinforces the village's enigmatic presence, making visitors feel simultaneously welcome and unwelcome, drawn in and kept at a careful distance. The mist itself is a character within the village. It coils around lamp posts, drapes over fences, and gathers in pockets along the streets. Its thickness varies with a will of its own, sometimes rising to reveal rooftops, other times pressing low to obscure even the nearest buildings. The fog mediates all interaction within the village, shaping the experience of those who enter and maintaining the delicate balance between exposure and concealment. Even the smallest details suggest a past that lingers. Footprints appear and fade within the fog. Doors creak as though opened by absent hands. And chairs arranged at tables seem recently used. Every element contributes to a sense that the village is preserved in memory. A space where time seems pliable, where moments can stretch or compress without warning. Visitors often leave with a lingering impression, a sense that they have witnessed something beyond ordinary perception. Fogcrest does not seek attention, yet it commands it, offering glimpses of mystery to those patient enough to observe. The village exists on the boundary between reality and legend, a place that is visible only when the world itself allows it to be seen. As the mist begins to lift, the outlines of Fogcrest blur and dissolve, leaving only the hills and forests behind. Doors and windows fall silent, streets empty once more, and the village retreats into its protective veil. Travelers who depart carry the memory with them, an image of a place that may or may not have existed, yet leaves an indelible impression. Fogcrest endures as a testament to the power of mystery. A place hidden within the folds of fog, sustained by silence. Every movement, every swirl of mist, contributes to a narrative that is both inviting and unreachable. It is a village that challenges perception, offering a fleeting glimpse, waiting patiently to reveal itself once again. Whispering brook winds gently through the heart of a quiet village, its waters glimmering under the soft light of the evening sky. Its surface rippling with a slow, deliberate current, and yet it carries a presence that is hard to explain. Locals speak of the brook with a mixture of reverence and unease, for travelers passing through often notice things that cannot be easily described. As night falls, the air changes. A faint mist rises from the water, curling in the lantern glow of nearby homes. Travelers walking along the banks report hearing soft laughter and occasional cries emanating from the stream itself. The sounds are distant and fleeting, sometimes seeming joyful, sometimes sorrowful, yet always tied to the rhythm of the brook. It is as if the water holds the echoes of lives long past, memories that drift along with the current. Lanterns float along the brook, bobbing gently on the surface. They move as though guided by unseen hands, their soft glow reflecting in the rippling water. Some appear to lead the way, tracing a delicate path through the village, while others linger, hovering near banks where shadows stretch across the cottages and trees. Observers often feel a quiet pull, a sense that the lanterns are guiding spirits home, leading them through the darkness to a place of rest. The village itself is still, as if the world beyond its boundaries has ceased to exist. Streets wind in irregular patterns, lined with stone cottages and wooden fences. Windows are dark, yet sometimes faint shapes appear within, figures that vanish when approached. There is a feeling that the village is alive with hidden movement, unseen yet attentive, its energy woven into the air and water alike. Travelers who linger near the brook report the sensation of being watched, not in fear, but in quiet observation. Shadows shift along the edges of the stream. And reflections in the water show fleeting images that do not correspond to any person or object nearby. The surface of the brook seems to capture more than light, holding moments, emotions, and the subtle traces of those who once lived here. Sound plays a key role in the village's mysterious atmosphere. The gentle lapping of the water is punctuated by soft, indistinct murmurs. The laughter is delicate and airy, carrying a warmth that contrasts with the occasional sobbing that pierces the silence. Every note feels purposeful, a whisper of a story carried downstream. Even the wind through the trees joins the chorus, rustling leaves in patterns that echo the subtle cadence of voices along the water. The lanterns themselves appear to respond to those who watch. They drift closer when travelers pause, as if inviting observation, and retreat when approached too quickly, preserving a sense of mystery. Some lanterns form slow circles, tracing small loops in the water, while others drift steadily along the current. Their movement creates shifting patterns of light and shadow, illuminating the banks in ways that seem intentional, highlighting details that might otherwise go unnoticed. At times, the brook's waters seem to shimmer unnaturally. Reflections ripple and bend, distorting reality just enough to make shapes appear within the current. Travelers have glimpsed faint figures standing beneath the surface, frozen in moments of laughter or grief. These images vanish when looked at directly, leaving only the sense that the water remembers, holding fragments of lives that continue to exist alongside the living. The village's relationship with the brook is one of quiet respect. Locals avoid certain areas after dusk, knowing that the stream holds memories too powerful to disturb. Paths along the banks are worn and deliberate, and benches and small piers provide spots for reflection and observation. Even those passing through are struck by a feeling of reverence, a sense that the brook is more than water and stone, that it is a living witness to the history and stories of the village. Night deepens, and the mist thickens, curling in slow spirals above the water. Lanterns continue their dance, guiding light over the rippling current. Travelers hear the laughter rise and fall, intertwined with distant cries, creating an emotional landscape that is at once haunting and comforting. Every movement of water, every flicker of light, reinforces the sensation of being part of something larger. A connection between the living and the unseen. The brook seems to have its own rhythm, a pulse that beats in quiet harmony with the village. Steps along the banks are measured against the flow of water, pauses synchronized with the lantern's movement. Travelers often find themselves moving in tune with this hidden tempo, drawn to the reflective beauty of the scene, yet aware of the subtle tension that comes with witnessing a space imbued with lingering spirits. As dawn approaches, the mist lifts slowly, and the laughter fades into the morning light. Lanterns drift to the edges of the brook and settle, their glow dimming but never fully disappearing. The stream resumes its quiet flow, carrying memories downstream, preserving fragments of joy, sorrow, and the gentle passage of time. Those who have stayed until morning often leave with a deep sense of wonder, carrying with them the quiet impression of a place where the ordinary and the extraordinary intertwine. Whispering Brook endures as a symbol of continuity and mystery. Where water, light, and memory converge. Where the echoes of lives past meet the curiosity of those who arrive. With the faint scent of mist in their hair. The shimmer of lantern light in their eyes. And the soft memory of laughter and cries that continue to drift along the gentle current. The village and its brook remind all who visit that some places hold more than what is visible. That streams can carry whispers. And that light can guide even the unseen home. Whispering Brook remains a living narrative. A testament to the unseen threads connecting past and present. Spirits and travelers. Water and memory. Offering a quiet, enduring encounter with the mysteries that shape our world. Whispering Brook remains a living narrative, a testament to the unseen threads connecting past and present, spirits and travelers, water and memory, offering a quiet, enduring encounter with the mysteries that shape our world. Shadow Glen lies hidden deep within a stretch of forest that seems to extend endlessly. Where tall pines and dense underbrush block the light of the sun even during the brightest hours of the day. A low mist often clings to the forest floor, weaving through the trees and softening the edges of the landscape. It is a place that appears peaceful at first, yet holds a quiet tension that travelers cannot easily define. At the edge of the forest, figures sometimes appear. They are indistinct at first, mere shapes among the shadows, watching silently from a distance. Those who notice them often report a sudden, unshakable awareness that they are being observed. The figures remain still, almost statuesque, blending into the darkness of the forest. When approached, they vanish without a trace, leaving behind only the echo of a presence that feels deliberate and patient. Visitors to Shadow Glen describe a sense of time shifting. Moments stretch and compress unpredictably, making the forest feel simultaneously vast and intimate. Footsteps are absorbed into the soft forest floor, yet at times, faint sounds of movement appear where no one stands. A twig snaps in the distance, yet no animal is present. Leaves rustle with the wind, yet the motion feels almost purposeful, as if the forest itself guides the visitor's attention toward what is hidden in plain sight. Homes near the forest bear evidence of the glen's presence. Travelers who spend the night report waking to find faint footprints on their doorstep that were not there before. They are small, irregular, sometimes deep enough to press into the earth, yet they vanish when investigated closely. The effect is not violent or threatening, but it leaves a lingering awareness that the glen is aware of every visitor. The landscape is a study in contrasts. Sunlight struggles to penetrate the canopy, creating patches of illumination that seem to move as the wind shifts the branches. Shadows stretch and twist, forming shapes that are difficult to interpret. Rocks and fallen logs are scattered across the forest floor, yet each seems deliberately positioned to guide movement along winding paths. Rocks and fallen logs are scattered across the forest floor, yet each seems deliberately positioned to guide movement along winding paths. Even the sound of wind through the trees carries an unusual quality, sometimes soft and melodic, other times sharp and fleeting, as if the forest is speaking in a language only partially understood. Travelers often feel drawn deeper into the woods, compelled to explore paths that appear on no map. The mist thickens, softening the contours of the forest, and the silhouettes of figures appear and disappear with uncanny timing. They seem to observe without intruding, tracking movement from a distance. The experience is immersive and disorienting, a delicate balance between curiosity and caution that keeps visitors alert to every sound, every shadow, and every shifting detail of the terrain. At night, Shadow Glen becomes more intense. The silhouettes are easier to see against the moonlit forest floor, pale and ethereal, yet still distant. Sounds of nocturnal animals blend with subtle creaks and whispers carried on the wind, creating a tapestry of noise that suggests life beyond what is visible. The mist thickens further, and travelers often find that familiar paths become unfamiliar, distances feel altered, and the forest stretches beyond the horizon. Every step is measured, every pause deliberate, as if the glen is assessing those who enter. Despite the eerie atmosphere, the forest is not inherently threatening. Many describe a quiet presence, a watchful attention that is persistent yet non-violent. The footprints, the glimpsed figures, and the shifting shadows serve as reminders of an intelligence that exists alongside the natural world. It is a place where memory and perception intersect, where the ordinary rules of observation no longer fully apply. And where each visitor leaves with a heightened awareness of the unseen. By dawn, the mist begins to lift, and the silhouettes retreat to the deeper shadows of the forest. The forest floor returns to its natural quiet, yet the sense of observation lingers. Travelers leave with subtle impressions of being touched by something beyond the ordinary. The footprints remain in memory, the figures in the Minda Si, and the forest seems to echo with their passage long after they have departed. Shadow Glen holds its secrets tightly, revealing just enough to ignite curiosity, while preserving the mystery that has defined it for generations. Shadow Glen exists as both forest and enigma. Figures watch from the trees, footprints mark the boundaries of the seen and unseen. And the mist carries whispers that hint at presence without offering clarity. Each visitor becomes part of its story, their movements and perceptions woven into the fabric of the forest. Their movements and perceptions woven into the fabric of the forest. In the stillness of the trees, the glen waits patiently, observing, recording, and reminding all who enter. Observing, recording, and reminding all who enter that some places are alive in ways that defy ordinary understanding. Where every shadow, every sound, and every step carries the weight of unseen eyes. Silent Hollow is a village that seems frozen in time. A place where streets wind between weathered houses. And empty squares. The buildings lean slightly with age. Yet the village exudes a quiet presence that is both inviting and unnerving. On first approach, it appears abandoned, the streets empty, the windows dark. Yet those who venture inside soon realize that the village is far from silent. Voices echo through the narrow lanes, carrying conversations that seem impossibly close yet originate from empty homes. Travelers have described hearing people speaking about events long past, tales of days and decades gone by. The words are clear enough to catch attention, fragments of domestic life, laughter, disputes, and casual chatter, yet when visitors approach the houses, no one is there. Doors remain closed, rooms empty, and the air is still, as if the voices are memories lingering just beyond reach. The architecture of Silent Hollow reflects its history. Stone and wood combine to create structures that feel both sturdy and fragile, a testament to generations of residents who once walked these streets. Roofs sag under the weight of time. Windows are clouded with dust. And chimneys rise like silent sentinels against the sky. Yet the voices persist. Defying the emptiness. Flowing through corridors and spilling into the open air. Creating an atmosphere charged with the presence of the unseen. Visitors often experience the sensation that the village itself is aware of them. Every step along the cobblestones echoes unnaturally, bouncing off walls and corners, blending with the murmurs from the houses. A soft breeze rustles through trees and shutters, carrying whispers that seem to respond to movement. Footsteps may precede or follow a visitor, yet when they turn, the street remains deserted. The village seems to pulse with memory, holding traces of life that refuse to fade entirely. At night, Silent Hollow becomes more mysterious. Faint lights appear in windows, illuminating interiors long unused. Shadows move behind curtains and across floors, fleeting and indistinct. Travelers report hearing conversations about events that happened decades ago. Arguments and reconciliations, celebrations and farewells. Some claim the voices recount their own names or speak directly to them. A disorienting sensation that blurs the line between past and present. Affecting travelers who venture into the town. Some claim the voices speak directly to them, a disorienting sensation that blurs the line between past and present. Blurring the line between past and present. The village's silence is paradoxical. While voices carry, other sounds are muted. The wind seems to slow, the rustling of leaves quiets, and distant wildlife holds its breath. The wind seems to slow, the rustling of leaves quiets, and distant wildlife holds its breath. Even the steps of those exploring the village feel swallowed by the environment. Cameras and recording devices left by curious visitors often capture sounds not witnessed with the eyes, whispers and footsteps without source, and fleeting shadows that appear in corners where nothing exists. Whispers and footsteps without source, and fleeting shadows that appear in corners where nothing exists. Whispers and footsteps without source, and fleeting shadows that appear in corners where nothing exists. The origin of the voices remains a mystery. Some speculate that the village retains echoes of past residents. Imprints of life pressed into the very wood and stone. Others suggest a temporal anomaly, a place where time folds and past moments seep into the present. Regardless of explanation, the effect is undeniable. Visitors consistently experience a sense of presence, a feeling that the village remembers, observes, and repeats fragments of life long ended. Silent Hollow has attracted historians, paranormal enthusiasts, and travelers seeking the unusual. Each comes with different expectations but leaves with similar impressions: the voices, the flickering lights, and the intangible sense of life beyond perception. Even those who arrive with skepticism find themselves unnerved, noticing details that seem almost purposeful. The village tells its story subtly, weaving narrative through sound, shadow, and atmosphere rather than through overt displays. The streets themselves seem to guide visitors. Pathways twist and bend unexpectedly, alleys that appear brief lead to larger courtyards. And dead ends open into unexpected vistas. The arrangement of buildings enhances the ethereal effect, allowing voices to carry far beyond their source and shadows to extend unnaturally. Every corner feels like a stage for events both remembered and imagined, with the village itself as an unseen narrator. Despite its eerie qualities, Silent Hollow is not threatening. The presence within it is quiet, persistent, and watchful rather than aggressive. Observers find themselves captivated by the experience, listening closely to whispers that might reveal fragments of history, names, and events. Even fleeting glimpses of shadow or shifting light become engrossing, a gentle reminder that the village is alive in ways that are invisible to the ordinary eye. Time spent in Silent Hollow feels stretched. Hours may pass with little movement beyond the flicker of lights and shifting shadows. Visitors leave with lingering impressions. Footsteps on empty streets. Voices recounting stories long past. And the sense of a place that exists beyond conventional understanding. The village remains, patient and quiet, holding its memories and welcoming those who wish to witness its mysteries. Next time a winding road leads through a forest or across open fields, and an old village emerges at the horizon. Its streets may appear empty, yet voices echo within its houses. Windows may glow with unseen light, and fleeting shadows may cross rooms long abandoned. The village exists at the intersection of memory and presence, a place where the past lingers alongside the present, inviting visitors to hear the stories carried in its silence. Ravenwood is a village that rests deep within a dense forest, where the trees stretch tall and dark, their branches entwined like fingers against the sky. The air is heavy with the scent of moss and damp earth, and a subtle unease hangs in every shadow. The village appears small and quiet, almost quaint at first glance. Narrow streets wind between timbered houses, their windows darkened against the night. Yet the quiet is deceptive. Figures in black cloaks are glimpsed at the windows, always still, watching, yet the moment anyone approaches, they vanish as if dissolved into the darkness. The effect is disorienting, leaving a trace of dread that lingers long after the figure disappears. Above the village, crows circle endlessly at night. The sound of their calls echoes through the streets, a low chorus. A low chorus that amplifies the feeling of isolation and vigilance. They never settle, always watching, always moving, as though maintaining a connection between the forest and the village. A bridge of shadow and sound. The forest surrounding Ravenwood seems to breathe with life. Branches sway without wind, and shadows twist along the ground like living tendrils. Leaves rustle though the air is still, and footsteps can be heard from paths that no one walks. Visitors often describe the sensation of being followed, the quiet pressure of attention that is never revealed, yet never absent. Every step through the village feels measured, watched, and noted by something beyond understanding. Visitors often describe the sensation of being followed, the quiet pressure of attention that is never revealed, yet never absent. Within the village, doors creak and windows rattle without cause. The sound of locks turning and floors creaking echoes from empty houses. Interiors appear untouched, yet objects shift subtly, as if the space itself is rearranging around an unseen presence. Chairs tilt, books lie open at pages previously unread, and the faint scent of smoke or herbs drifts through rooms that have been closed for years. The village maintains a pulse, a rhythm separate from time, quietly alive in the absence of inhabitants. Crows continue their endless vigil. Their circling movements, both graceful and ominous, cast long shadows over rooftops and alleyways. When one pauses to listen, there is an underlying hum in the air, subtle and constant, as if the birds themselves are the keepers of some secret the village has held for generations. Their presence creates an invisible boundary, a silent warning to those who venture too far into the heart of Ravenwood. Travelers recount glimpses of the cloaked figures at windows. They are not threatening, yet they evoke a sense of inevitability, a reminder that something in the village is always present, always aware. They are never static, never predictable. Leaving observers with the chilling impression that the village itself communicates through them, that its history and purpose are woven into every shadow, every movement, every glance. The paths through Ravenwood are narrow and winding. Cobblestones are slick with moss and moisture. And low-hanging branches create arches that block the sky. Walking these streets at night, one becomes acutely aware of the sounds of the forest. The whisper of leaves, the distant calls of animals, the soft tapping of wings against unseen surfaces. The village and forest blend into a single entity, a living organism with its own consciousness and design. Windows and doors act as thresholds between worlds. Inside, rooms appear ordinary, yet the feeling of being watched never fades. Shadows stretch unnaturally, corners deepen beyond logic, and reflections in glass seem to reveal movement that does not exist. The village exists in a liminal state, caught between what is real and what is imagined, between the tangible and the ethereal. Crows, cloaked figures, and shifting shadows are not merely elements of fear. They are signals, markers of the village's presence and history. Each contributes to the story Ravenwood tells without words. Observers carry away impressions of subtle order and deliberate chaos, a sense that every detail is purposeful and meaningful, even when it defies explanation. The village holds its mysteries close. Travelers leave with memories of flickering shapes, cold gusts from empty windows, and the constant murmur of unseen life. even when the mist lifts and the forest appears ordinary once more. The echo of Ravenwood remains, lingering in the mind like a half-remembered dream. Ravenwood endures as a place of quiet power and persistent wonder. Every figure glimpsed, every circling crow, every shifting shadow reinforces the sense that the village is alive, not just with life, but with intention. It is a place that challenges perception, reminding all who witness it that some places are protected not by walls or fences, but by mystery, vigilance, and the steady, unyielding presence of the forest itself. Frostvale lies nestled in a remote valley, its cottages and streets blanketed in thick snow during the coldest months. The village is small, quiet, and seemingly frozen in time, as though the passage of years has little meaning here. Each winter, the chill deepens, and a stillness settles over the landscape, wrapping the village in a serene but haunting silence. The snow crunches softly underfoot, muffling sound and heightening awareness of every movement. Windows, frosted over and unlit, reflect the pale light of the winter sun, casting a subtle glow across the square. Faint music can sometimes be heard drifting from the abandoned houses. It is delicate, ethereal, and difficult to place. Notes seem to float through the streets, carrying a melody that is both joyous and melancholic. Travelers who pause to listen describe a sensation of being drawn into the rhythm, as if the music is not simply sound but a bridge connecting the living to the echoes of Frostvale's past. The square, covered in pristine snow, holds a particular mystery. On nights when the moon casts long shadows across the village, figures appear dancing across the frozen ground. They move with a grace that suggests celebration, yet there is an uncanny stillness to their presence. Observers often find themselves mesmerized, unable to discern whether these forms are illusions created by the snow and light, or spirits revisiting moments long gone. Shadows stretch across the buildings as the wind moves through the village, carrying the faint rustle of unseen movement. Doors creak softly, and the timbre of distant laughter drifts on the air. The village streets twist and narrow, flanked by timber-framed houses with steep roofs heavy with snow. Chimneys are still, though smoke sometimes curls in thin trails without any visible fire below. Visitors remark on the feeling that the village observes them, a quiet attention that is both reassuring and unsettling. The very architecture seems designed to preserve the stillness, guiding footsteps along paths that encourage reflection and awareness of the subtle mysteries all around. Lanterns, often left lit through the winter nights, cast gentle pools of light across the snow. The illumination creates shifting shadows that seem to dance along with the mysterious figures in the square. Each flicker adds to the village's enigmatic atmosphere, highlighting details that might otherwise be overlooked. And the faint trace of footprints that appear and disappear without explanation. Travelers report a sensation of altered time in Frostvale. Minutes stretch and contract unpredictably. And the usual markers of daytime and nighttime feel suspended. A brief walk through the village can seem to last hours, while entire nights pass in what feels like moments. It is as though Frostvale exists slightly out of sync with the ordinary world, maintaining its own rhythm, its own cadence, and inviting those who enter to align with its unique flow. The dancing figures themselves are often fleeting. Some visitors see them circling the square, twirling in delicate patterns that seem almost choreographed. Others catch glimpses of single dancers pausing under the glow of a lantern, only to vanish when approached. Their presence is accompanied by the faint music that seems to emanate from every house at once, a symphony of echoes that both comforts and unnerves. Footprints in the snow appear without explanation, sometimes following familiar paths through the square, other times leading into alleys or along the edges of the village. Delicate, barely pressing into the frozen ground, and vanish as quickly as they appear. Travelers who attempt to track them discover that the paths seem to move in tandem with the dancing figures, guiding them along routes that suggest intention, yet never revealing the source. Wind sweeps through the village in gentle gusts, carrying the scent of pine, ice, and faint wood smoke. The cold is biting, yet it also sharpens perception, heightening the senses and making every flicker of movement or sound more noticeable. Visitors remark on the paradox of Frostvale. The village is serene, beautiful, and yet filled with subtle tension, a sense that reality itself is bending slightly under the weight of memory and presence. The music, shadows, and figures are all part of a larger rhythm, a tapestry of experiences that repeat each winter with slight variations. Observers feel connected to generations long past, sensing that the village has stored moments, emotions, and stories in its snow-covered streets. Frostvale is more than a place, it is a living narrative, preserved in ice and shadow. Melody and movement, waiting to be perceived by those who arrive with attention and curiosity. As dawn approaches, the dancing figures fade, the music becomes faint. The village seems to exhale in relief. Travelers leave Frostvale. The sense of a village that is alive yet unseen, frozen yet full of motion. Resonating with echoes of joy and sorrow. Frostvale endures as a quiet testament to the interplay between the living and the memories of the past. Its snow-covered streets, ghostly music, and ethereal dancers create a world that is at once enchanting and mysterious. Visitors depart with more questions than answers. Yet they are forever marked by the delicate, haunting beauty of a village where time stands still, and the ordinary becomes extraordinary. Imbermist sits quietly in a remote valley, surrounded by hills that rise like silent sentinels against the night sky. As evening falls, the village transforms. The source of the light is elusive, yet it pulses steadily, casting long shadows that shift independently of any visible movement. The streets are narrow and winding, lined with stone and timber buildings that appear aged and weathered. Visitors often pause, caught between awe and unease, sensing that the village is aware of their arrival. Every step echoes across the cobblestones, amplified in the still air, emphasizing the quiet that pervades the village at night. Shadows in Imbermist behave strangely. They stretch unnaturally across walls and alleyways, moving in ways that defy the laws of physics. Some shadows appear to detach from their sources entirely, slithering along surfaces, converging in corners, or gliding across rooftops. Observers report a disorienting effect, where the shadows seem to anticipate their movements, slipping just beyond sight or lingering to draw attention. The interplay of light and darkness transforms familiar shapes into enigmatic silhouettes, making every building and street corner feel alive with hidden activity. Figures sometimes appear atop the rooftops, indistinct at first, blending into the glow and shadows. They stand perfectly still, watching silently as travelers pass below. Their presence is unnerving, yet there is no sense of immediate threat. The figures vanish when approached, leaving only the lingering impression of eyes that observe and remember. Witnesses often describe a sense of being studied, as if the village itself records their movement, storing memory in the shifting light and shadow. The village air carries a faint warmth, tinged with a scent reminiscent of burning wood or smoldering embers. Occasionally, a soft breeze carries whispers that are almost inaudible, brushing against ears and brushing along the streets. Visitors report hearing fragments of conversation, laughter, or faint cries that seem to emerge from nowhere. The combination of light, shadow, and subtle sound creates an immersive atmosphere, compelling travelers to continue exploring, drawn by the mysterious and unexplainable energy of Imbermist. Buildings that appear abandoned by day take on a different quality at night. Windows reflect the orange light, yet inside, nothing moves. Doorways are dark and deep, yet the glow seems to spill out as if from within the walls themselves. Steps creak in empty hallways, and the faint rustle of fabric or distant footfalls suggest life where none exists. Each sensation reinforces the sense that the village straddles a line between the natural and the supernatural. A place caught between reality and perception. Observers walking the streets note that the orange light shifts in intensity, sometimes dimming to a soft glow and then flaring brighter without explanation. Shadows react accordingly, stretching further or retreating, creating an ever-changing landscape that challenges the mind and perception. The effect is hypnotic, drawing attention to details that would otherwise go unnoticed. A shutter slightly open, a branch brushing against a wall, a glimmer of movement in a window high above. Night in Inverness stretches longer than expected. Time feels distorted, as though the village exists outside the ordinary flow of hours. Travelers moving through its streets report losing track of distance and direction, often doubling back to the same alleyways or rooftops without realizing it. Every step reinforces the impression that the village is alive, responding subtly to presence, and weaving perception into its quiet, luminous embrace. By dawn, the unnatural orange glow begins to fade. Shadows contract and settle back into alignment with their sources, figures disappear from rooftops. And the streets grow silent once more. The village returns to an appearance closer to ordinary, yet the memory of the light. The memory of the light, the shifting shadows, and the distant figures lingers. Travelers depart with the feeling that Inverness continues to observe them even as it fades from view. A village alive in ways that extend beyond comprehension. Inverness is more than a place. It is a living tableau of light and shadow, memory and perception. Its rooftops, alleyways, and glowing streets preserve moments that defy explanation, creating an atmosphere that captivates and unsettles simultaneously. For those who encounter it, the village leaves a lasting impression of wonder and unease, a reminder that some places exist in a realm where ordinary rules do not apply. And where every flicker of light, every stretching shadow, and every silent figure tells a story that continues even after the visitor has gone. Duskfern is a village that seems to sink further into the forest with every passing year. Towering trees surround it on all sides, their branches weaving together to form a dense canopy that filters the sunlight into shifting patterns on the cobblestone streets. Travelers who stumble upon it often speak of a strange sensation, a feeling that the village exists on its own timetable, separate from the world beyond the trees. The paths of Duskfern are unpredictable. What seems to be a straight road will twist unexpectedly, curving back on itself or vanishing behind overgrown hedges. Streets lead to courtyards that were not visible moments before. And narrow alleys appear to shift, disorienting those who attempt to map the village. Every turn carries the sense that the forest itself guides the movements of the village, shaping paths in ways both subtle and deliberate. Houses in Duskfern are aged and weathered, built from stone and timber, their facades marked by the slow passage of time. Windows are often shuttered, yet lights occasionally flicker within, hinting at presence where none should exist. Travelers report seeing doors where none were before, wooden portals that seem to materialize in walls or fences, inviting curiosity yet often leading to empty rooms or corridors that twist impossibly. The village resists certainty, presenting experiences that are both familiar and strange. The atmosphere is dense and quiet, filled with the sound of wind whispering through the trees and leaves rustling across the ground. Footsteps echo on the cobblestones, often appearing louder than expected, and sometimes seeming to come from directions where no one is walking. Travelers have described hearing soft murmurs carried on the breeze, conversations that begin and end abruptly, as if fragments of the past are replaying within the village itself. Duskfern has a long and elusive history. It was once a thriving settlement, though records are incomplete and often contradictory. Tales tell of families who lived in harmony with the forest, of craftsmen and farmers, of markets that bustled with life. Yet over time, the village seemed to fade from maps and memory. Some historians suggest that it never fully disappeared, instead retreating deeper into the forest, leaving behind only traces of paths and buildings for those willing to seek it. The village's unpredictable layout amplifies its mysterious nature. Courtyards appear larger than their entrances suggest, and streets can loop back on themselves without warning. Shadows stretch along walls and across paths in unusual ways, often appearing to move independently of light sources. Even the tallest trees seem to lean subtly toward certain streets, guiding travelers along routes that defy expectation. Every corner of Duskfern holds a sense of anticipation, as if the village is aware of those who walk its streets. At night, Duskfern takes on a more ethereal quality. Moonlight filters through the forest canopy, casting shifting patterns on the stone walls and cobblestones. Lights within houses flicker faintly, and fleeting silhouettes can be glimpsed through windows. Doors that were not present in the daylight appear suddenly, and passages seem to rearrange themselves subtly, offering new routes or leading to empty rooms. Visitors often experience a disorienting mixture of curiosity and unease, caught between wonder and the impossibility of understanding. Travelers report a sensation of being observed, not by people, but by the village itself. The forest seems to hold its breath, and shadows move just beyond the edge of vision. Footsteps may echo when no one walks nearby, and the scent of earth and foliage grows more pronounced as if guiding the senses. Even time feels altered within Duskfern, minutes stretching or contracting, leaving visitors unsure of how long they have been within its boundaries. Cameras and recording equipment left by explorers often capture strange phenomena. Shadows that do not correspond to any object appear on walls and floors. Sounds of distant voices, footsteps, or creaking doors are recorded despite the absence of people. Some footage shows doors appearing and disappearing in frames, shifting locations between observations. Despite the uncertainty and strangeness, Duskfern attracts those with curiosity and courage. Historians, photographers, and travelers seeking the unusual come to explore its streets, documenting its peculiarities. Every visitor leaves with impressions that linger, twisting paths, doors that appear unexpectedly, and the sense of a village alive with its own rhythms. The experience is immersive, compelling observers to notice details that seem ordinary at first, yet reveal themselves to be extraordinary over time. The village exists as a threshold between reality and something just beyond perception. Trees arch over streets, shadows stretch in impossible directions. And the forest seems to pulse with quiet energy. Visitors leave carrying a mixture of awe and unease. The memory of paths that changed beneath their feet. And the impression that Duskfern is not fixed in one place, but continues to grow and move subtly. Hidden within the heart of the forest. Next time a winding road leads deep into dense woodland. And a small village emerges through the trees. Its streets may shift, doors may appear where none existed. And every path may twist unexpectedly. The village seems to exist outside ordinary time, drawing travelers into an experience where the boundaries between reality and imagination blur, leaving behind memories that linger long after the forest swallows it from view. Hollowshade is a village swallowed by mist, where the night brings a fog so thick it blurs the edges of reality. The streets are narrow and winding, lined with timbered houses whose windows glow faintly in the haze. Travelers who stumble upon Hollowshade speak of an unsettling quiet, the kind that presses against the ears and settles into the chest. Each step taken along its cobblestones feels measured, watched, as though the fog itself is alive and aware. Figures roam the streets carrying lanterns that burn with no flame. Their light is pale, cold, and steady, illuminating the path ahead without warmth. They move silently, gliding past doorways and alleyways, pausing only briefly as if acknowledging the presence of outsiders. When approached, they vanish into the fog without a trace, leaving the streets empty once more. And a lingering sense of wonder mixed with unease. The fog in Hollowshade is thick and persistent, wrapping around trees and lampposts, curling through doorways, and creeping into the corners of buildings. It muffles sound, making the soft scrape of a footstep or the distant toll of a bell feel amplified and deliberate. Conversations seem distant, swallowed by the haze, and travelers often report a strange sensation of disorientation, as if the village shifts slightly while they move. Unseen hands brush against shoulders, light and fleeting, yet impossible to ignore. Visitors describe a sensation of being guided, or perhaps tested, as though Hollowshade itself is deciding who may traverse its streets. Doors creak open slowly in empty buildings, and windows rattle as if moved by invisible fingers. The effect is subtle but persistent, an invisible choreography that keeps every visitor alert and aware of their surroundings. Lanterns bob along the streets, carried by figures whose forms are human but whose presence feels otherworldly. Their movements are smooth and deliberate, silent shadows against the opaque gray of the fog. Travelers who attempt to track them find their steps echoing back, a reminder that Hollowshade maintains its own rules. The architecture of the village adds to its haunting quality. Wooden beams warp slightly in the corners, cobblestones settle into uneven patterns, and rooftops tilt in ways that feel slightly askew. Even familiar elements take on an unfamiliar character in the fog, as though the village is shifting subtly to maintain a balance between visibility and concealment. Every detail contributes to the atmosphere, making the village feel both welcoming and impenetrable at once. Sounds within Hollowshade are distorted by the thick fog. A bell chimes faintly from the tower, yet no clock strikes the hour. Footsteps echo along empty lanes, sometimes approaching, sometimes retreating. Occasionally, a low murmur drifts through the haze, voices indistinct and elusive, never forming words. The combination of auditory and visual anomalies deepens the sense that the village exists on the edge of reality, a place that belongs to another dimension of perception. Visitors often report a sense of time bending within Hollowshade. Minutes can stretch, hours can collapse, and the sun may rise or set without the usual markers of change. Shadows lengthen and shrink in unnatural ways, and objects in rooms appear in different positions when revisited. The village is alive not only in appearance but in behavior, a conscious entity that observes and interacts with all who enter. Even the smallest details carry significance. A chair tilts slightly as if someone had been sitting moments before. Smoke drifts lazily from a chimney, though no fire burns below. Each element reinforces the feeling that Hollowshade maintains a presence, one that is attentive, deliberate, and impossible to fully comprehend. Those who linger in the village describe a mixture of fear and fascination. The fog, the silent figures, and the brushing hands create a narrative without words. A story written in movement, light, and perception. It is an experience that challenges the senses, asking visitors to reconcile what they see with what they feel, and what they expect with what exists. As the night deepens, Hollowshade becomes both more defined and more elusive. Lanterns continue their silent patrols, figures glide through the fog, and unseen hands trace paths along the streets. Lanterns continue their silent patrols, figures glide through the fog, and unseen hands trace paths along the streets. Lanterns continue their silent patrols, figures glide through the fog, and unseen hands trace paths along the streets. Travelers who leave carry the memory of the village, an impression of a place where reality bends gently but persistently, leaving traces of wonder and unease alike. Travelers who leave carry the memory of the village, an impression of a place where reality bends gently but persistently, leaving traces of wonder and unease alike. Hollowshade endures as a village of quiet mysteries. A place where the fog is both a shield and a guide. And where the unseen holds as much sway as the visible. Every figure, every lantern, every fleeting sensation. The village invites observation without promise, offering glimpses of a world suspended between the tangible and the ethereal, and ensuring that those who witness it never forget the sensation of walking through its misted streets. Moonvale rests quietly beneath the glow of the full moon. A village whose narrow streets and timbered homes are bathed in silver light. Shadows stretch and twist across walls, creating forms that seem almost alive. The air is crisp and still, carrying a sense of anticipation, as though the village itself holds its breath until the night is fully revealed. Travelers arriving after dark often notice the streets empty yet alive. Faint movements ripple at the edges of vision, shadows that do not belong to any passerby. Shapes of children appear, their small figures darting between cottages and along alleyways. They run and play, yet there is no sound to accompany their laughter. The silence is profound, amplifying the mystery, leaving observers aware that they are witnessing something beyond ordinary experience. Lanterns flicker on wooden posts, casting soft pools of light that illuminate the cobblestones unevenly. Moonlight interacts with the glow, creating contrasts where shadows deepen unnaturally. The effect is mesmerizing, and travelers often feel drawn to the patterns of light and darkness, compelled to follow paths that seem guided by the village itself. Approaching the children reveals the village's most confounding mystery. When any visitor attempts to get closer, the figures vanish. They disappear into the night as if slipping through another layer of reality. Observers are left staring at empty streets, their presence remembered only in the faint traces of footprints or disturbed dust that quickly settles. This phenomenon repeats, reinforcing the sense that Moonvale is not governed by ordinary rules, but by an unseen rhythm tied to the moon above. The village houses add to the ethereal atmosphere. Windows are dark and cold, yet occasionally the flicker of movement is visible inside. Curtains sway though there is no wind, shadows drift across walls without a source. Travelers feel the presence of unseen residents, entities that watch quietly, preserving the village's stories and memories. Every detail, from the uneven paving stones to the moss creeping along rooftops, seems deliberately placed, enhancing the delicate tension between reality and illusion. Sounds in Moonvale are sparse but distinct. The rustle of fabric, the creak of floorboards, and the occasional echo of footsteps create a symphony of quiet activity. Each sound a subtle reminder of the hidden life that persists even in apparent emptiness. Moonlight itself seems to move independently in Moonvale. It bends around corners, illuminates spaces that should remain in shadow, and highlights figures that appear briefly before disappearing. The interplay of natural and ethereal light creates an atmosphere charged with curiosity and tension. Travelers report a sensation of being simultaneously observed and unobserved. Aware that the village holds a memory they cannot fully perceive but can feel intimately. The streets are winding, the alleys narrow, and the public square at the village's center is a stage for the most curious phenomena. Here, children appear in groups, chasing each other in patterns that suggest games long forgotten. Their movements are precise yet fluid, as if rehearsed across decades. The square reflects the moon's glow, shimmering across cobblestones in a way that heightens the sense of unreality. Observers often feel that they are intruding on something sacred, a fleeting window into the life of Moonvale beyond comprehension. Footprints occasionally appear on the ground, delicate and fleeting, disappearing as quickly as they form. Some seem to follow familiar paths through the square, others trace new directions, moving without logic. Travelers find themselves attempting to follow these traces, but they never lead to a definitive source. Instead, the paths reinforce the mystery, suggesting intention, presence, and stories suspended in time. Each step a fragment of the village's hidden narrative. The air carries subtle fragrances of earth, pine, and snow, mingling with something indefinable, a scent that hints at history and memory. Wind flows gently through the streets, stirring lantern flames, rustling leaves, and creating the impression of movement even where none exists. Each gust accentuates the village's liminality, blurring the line between the ordinary world and the spectral presence that defines Moonvale. Time in Moonvale feels altered. Moments stretch and contract unpredictably, making short visits feel prolonged and long ones vanish unnoticed. Travelers often report losing track of hours, experiencing events that seem simultaneous yet disconnected. It is as if the village itself exists slightly out of step with the world beyond, moving to a rhythm dictated by the moon, shadows, and unseen inhabitants. The children, though silent and elusive, leave a profound impression. Observers feel a mixture of awe and uncertainty, touched by the sense of joy and innocence that the figures exude. even while knowing they are not entirely of this world. Their presence transforms Moonvale from a simple village into a living tableau. A space where memory, light and perception merge seamlessly. As dawn approaches, the moon's glow fades. And the children vanish completely. Shadows recede, and the village appears dormant, ordinary once more. Travelers leave with lingering impressions of movement, light and silence, carrying memories of a place that defies ordinary understanding. Moonvale's mystery endures. Preserved in moonlight, cobblestones, and the fleeting forms of unseen residents who return only when the night is fully alive. Moonvale stands as a testament to the delicate boundary between the seen and the unseen. A village where light and shadow, presence and absence, joy and quiet tension coexist in perfect balance. Those who visit remember not just what they saw, but the feeling of having glimpsed a hidden world. A place suspended in time and guided by the luminous pull of the full moon, where the ordinary transforms into something quietly extraordinary. Valebrook is a village quietly cradled around a small, still lake, its waters reflecting the surrounding houses and trees with uncanny clarity. By day, the village appears serene, bathed in soft sunlight, with narrow cobblestone streets winding between timber-framed cottages. But as night falls, the atmosphere changes. The calm surface of the lake begins to shimmer with an unnatural glow, and the village takes on a presence that feels both alive and intangible. Travelers approaching the lake at dusk often report an immediate sense of anticipation, a quiet tension that seems to emanate from the water itself. Mist rises in delicate waves, curling along the edges of the shore and softening the reflections of the houses. Lanterns along the streets flicker and sway even without wind, casting pools of light that stretch across the cobblestones. The lake mirrors this illumination, but in ways that feel subtly altered, showing more than just the reflection of the present moment. As night deepens, ghostly boats appear on the lake, drifting slowly across the water. They carry no passengers, yet the oars dip into the surface as if moved by unseen hands. The boats move with a measured rhythm, gliding silently and leaving trails in the water that vanish almost as soon as they appear. Observers describe a sense of reverence and unease, drawn to the boats while sensing that their presence belongs to a world outside ordinary perception. The reflections in Valebrook are unlike any in other lakes. People report seeing events unfold in the water that never happened in reality. A child may appear to play on the shore when the area is empty. A figure may walk along a street that is dark and unoccupied. Or a door may open and close repeatedly in a house without anyone inside. These reflections are vivid and detailed, often eliciting feelings of nostalgia, fear, or curiosity. As if the lake preserves moments from a reality parallel to the village itself. The village streets are quiet at night, yet sounds carry unusually far. The gentle lapping of water against the boats is amplified, echoing off the houses and cobblestones. Occasionally, the creak of a door or the faint shuffle of footsteps can be heard, though no one is present. The air is cool and carries the scent of damp earth and the lake, mingling with faint traces of smoke from chimneys long cold. Every element of the village contributes to the sensation that Valebrook exists in a threshold between the real and the imagined. Travelers near the lake often notice subtle movements along the water's edge. Reeds sway even without wind, ripples form in patterns that do not correspond to falling objects. And shadows stretch across the surface with no identifiable source. The boats and reflections seem aware of observers, their appearances coinciding with movement, sounds, and shifts in attention. There is a rhythm to these manifestations, a quiet pulse that underlies the stillness and draws visitors deeper into the experience. Nightfall also brings a sense of timelessness. Minutes and hours feel elongated, with the lake and village appearing to exist outside ordinary perception. The glow from lanterns and windows casts an ethereal illumination that interacts with the lake in unpredictable ways. Reflections become more vivid, boats appear in greater numbers, and figures sometimes emerge in the water as fleeting silhouettes before fading into the surface. Those who spend extended time near the lake often describe sensations of being watched, though no observers are visible. The ghostly boats, the shifting reflections, and the delicate mist create a layered environment where perception is heightened and reality feels fragile. Every glance at the water reveals details that seem both familiar and impossible, reinforcing the impression that the village preserves memories and echoes of events beyond ordinary experience. By dawn, the boats vanish, the reflections return to their normal state, and the mist retreats with the rising sun. The village appears peaceful once more, yet the memory of the night lingers. Travelers leave with a heightened awareness of the lake and its mysterious activity, carrying the impression of events that may never have occurred and encounters that feel impossibly real. Valebrook exists as a place where perception and memory intertwine, where water becomes a mirror of alternate realities, and where the ordinary rules of time and space are suspended. Valebrook is more than a village built around a lake. The ghostly boats, the ever-changing reflections, and the subtle movements along the shore create an environment that captivates, unsettles, and inspires curiosity. Each visitor experiences it uniquely, yet all leave with the lingering sensation that the lake holds stories and events that continue long after they have gone, a quiet testament to the extraordinary presence of the unseen. Blackbriar is a village shrouded in mist and shadow, where the streets wind between buildings half hidden by thorny bushes that seem to grow taller and denser overnight. The air carries a sharp, earthy scent, and every step along the cobblestones is accompanied by the subtle rustle of thorns brushing against clothing. The forest surrounding Blackbriar looms close, dark and impenetrable. At its edge, figures can sometimes be glimpsed, standing silently among the trees. They watch with hollow eyes, their presence both unnerving and mesmerizing. They do not move closer, yet the sense of being observed is relentless, a quiet pressure that follows visitors down the twisting streets. Their forms are vague in the dim light, sometimes appearing taller or smaller than expected. And their stillness creates a tension that lingers long after they vanish from sight. Whispers drift through the village like the wind through the trees. Some visitors hear warnings carried in voices too soft to locate, urging them to leave immediately. The whispers are not hostile, yet their tone carries urgency, and those who pause to listen often feel the weight of unseen attention. Other times, laughter echoes faintly from empty alleys, or the sound of doors creaking open and closed resonates through the streets without any visible cause. Every sound is amplified by the village's stillness, creating a sense of anticipation, as though Blackbriar is aware of every movement. The buildings themselves are weathered and ancient, constructed of stone and timber with roofs sagging under the passage of time. Windows are grimy and often cracked, yet some glow faintly from within at night, revealing glimpses of rooms long abandoned. Shadows stretch unnaturally across walls, elongating along the cobblestones or pooling in corners as if they have a life of their own. Inside, the village seems to breathe, a rhythm felt more than heard, an energy that hints at histories both remembered and forgotten. Visitors frequently describe a sense of disorientation. Streets appear to shift subtly, paths that seemed familiar twist into new directions. And courtyards open where none existed before. The thorny bushes along the road seem to rearrange themselves, forcing travelers to take routes they did not anticipate. Even experienced explorers find themselves circling, returning to the same points as though the village has a will of its own, a deliberate design to trap or guide those who enter. Blackbriar's reputation is rooted in its mysteries. Legends tell of a village abandoned after a series of inexplicable events. Of families who vanished overnight, leaving behind homes, possessions, and shadows of their presence. Locals who live on the outskirts speak of the village in hushed tones, warning travelers of the figures in the woods and the whispers that precede danger. Stories suggest that Blackbriar is not merely a place, but a threshold, a space where the ordinary laws of time and reality bend, leaving traces of life that continue despite absence. The atmosphere is both heavy and alive. Wind rustles through the thorny bushes, carrying fragments of sound and scent that unsettle the senses. Footsteps echo unnaturally, sometimes preceding the traveler, sometimes following. Shadows stretch across streets and walls, appearing larger or smaller than the objects that cast them. The forest seems to lean inward, observing every movement. Time feels fluid within Blackbriar, with minutes stretching or contracting, leaving visitors unsure of how long they have wandered its streets. Cameras and recording devices set up by those curious enough to explore often capture strange phenomena. Shadows appear where no objects exist, lights flicker without explanation, and audio picks up faint whispers or footsteps when no one is present. Occasional glimpses of figures at the forest's edge are recorded on film, fleeting and distorted, their hollow eyes staring directly into the lens. Though subtle, these occurrences reinforce the village's reputation as a place where the ordinary and the inexplicable intersect. The village draws travelers seeking mystery, adventure, or insight into its peculiar nature. Each visitor leaves with impressions that linger, fragments of experience that feel almost tangible. The thorns, the shadows, the whispers, and the watching figures become memories carried long after leaving the village. Blackbriar is not threatening in a conventional sense, but it demands respect, patience, and careful observation, rewarding those who notice its details with an experience unlike any other. Even from a distance, the village exerts an eerie pull. Mist clings to the streets, and the silhouettes of buildings rise through the fog like dark sentinels. Travelers approaching Blackbriar often sense its presence before they see it. Drawn by the mystery and kept cautious by the persistent feeling of being watched. Blackbriar exists as a space between the known and the unknown, a place where nature and memory intertwine. Every path, every shadow, every whisper is part of the village's quiet story, inviting those who enter to notice the unseen. Listen to what is unspoken, and understand that the village holds more than the eye can perceive. Those who leave carry with them the echo of hollow eyes, the sensation of twisting streets, and the lingering sound of voices warning them to depart before it is too late. The village will continue to exist in its forest, growing its thorns, stretching its shadows, and whispering its warnings to those who wander too close. Blackbriar is not just a location on a map, it is an experience, a living story held between the trees, waiting to reveal itself to travelers who notice the smallest details. And to remind them that some places are meant to be approached with care, observation, and respect. Fogspire is a village shrouded in mist, where the air is thick with the scent of damp stone and pine. The buildings are clustered close together, their rooftops dark against the evening sky. In the center of the village rises the tallest tower, its silhouette cutting sharply through the fog. At night, it emits a faint blue glow, soft and unearthly, casting long shadows across the surrounding streets and cottages. Travelers speak of a quiet tension in the air, as if the village itself holds its breath in the presence of the tower. The tower dominates the skyline, its spire vanishing into the low-hanging mist. Visitors often notice shadows climbing the stairs, moving with deliberate pace yet vanishing before reaching the top. No one can explain the source of these silhouettes. They appear human in shape, yet their movement is unnerving in its fluidity, and the moments of disappearance leave a lingering sense of unease. The village itself seems to revolve around the tower, its presence an unspoken center of attention and apprehension. Approaching the tower, the air grows colder. Cobblestones dampen underfoot, and the fog clings to every surface, reducing visibility and amplifying every sound. A soft hum sometimes drifts from the tower, a vibration that resonates through the village streets. The sound is low, almost imperceptible at first, yet it seems to echo directly within the bones of those who listen too closely. The villagers themselves avoid the tower at night, retreating indoors and closing shutters against its gaze. Windows along the tower show movement that defies explanation. Travelers who attempt to watch closely report a sense of vertigo. As if the staircase stretches or shifts beyond the limits of measurement. The top of the tower remains hidden. Obscured by fog and an inexplicable aura. Every sighting ends with a sudden disappearance, leaving observers with only the memory of motion and a faint impression of height. The village surrounding the tower seems both protective and cautious. Lamp posts along the streets glow weakly, their light swallowed by the mist, while the sound of distant water from the nearby river adds to the atmosphere of isolation. Occasionally, doors creak open in the houses closest to the tower, though the interiors appear empty. Shadows stretch unnaturally along walls, responding to no visible source of light, as if the tower itself extends influence into the village. No one who has entered the tower has ever returned. Stories are whispered of explorers and curious travelers, some bold enough to climb its steps, others compelled by the blue glow and the secrets it promises. Each disappearance adds weight to the village's collective caution. Lanterns swing lightly in the wind, casting shadows that move as if alive, and the fog seems to thicken near the base of the tower, discouraging approach and guiding observers to remain at a respectful distance. The architecture of the tower is unusual and imposing. Its stones are dark and polished by centuries of weather, etched with carvings that are difficult to interpret. Some claim the markings shift when unobserved, changing subtly with the light of the moon or the angle of the mist. The spiral staircase inside seems impossibly steep and narrow, its upper reaches disappearing into an unseen void. Every feature of the tower reinforces its aura of mystery and its impenetrable presence. At night, the blue glow intensifies slightly, pulsing in a rhythm that feels almost like breathing. Shadows continue their silent ascent, and the fog seems drawn toward the tower, swirling in delicate spirals along the walls and streets. Travelers who linger report a feeling of being watched. An awareness that their movement is observed and noted by something beyond human perception. The combination of light, shadow, and mist creates a cinematic effect, as if the village itself has been suspended in time for this nightly display. Sounds are subtle but disconcerting. The faint scrape of steps, the whisper of wind against stone, and the low hum emanating from the tower all contribute to an immersive environment. The village reacts to every approach, every glance. Every motion near the tower, and every motion near the tower all contribute to an immersive environment. Even birds and small animals seem to avoid its immediate vicinity, leaving the base of the spire curiously still and silent. Visitors often feel a mix of awe and trepidation. The tower commands respect without speaking, dominates the village without threatening, and remains an unbroken puzzle that invites curiosity while resisting understanding. Each glance upward reinforces the perception that the tower is not merely a building but a living presence. A sentinel of fog and shadow, watching over hollow spire and maintaining boundaries between the ordinary and the unknown. As dawn approaches, the blue glow fades and the shadows vanish. The village returns to its daytime calm, yet the memory of the tower lingers, etched in the minds of those who witnessed its nighttime display. The mist retreats, but the aura of the tower endures, a silent promise that night will return, and with it the enigmatic climb of shadows and the unbroken mystery of Fog Spire. A village defined by its tallest tower, its spectral glow, and the secrets that lie within. To create an experience that challenges perception, beyond comprehension, waiting patiently to reveal their mysteries to those who dare to watch and wonder. Mistwood Cross rests quietly at the junction of two forest trails, a village hidden among towering pines and mist-laden undergrowth. Travelers who stumble upon it speak of an uncanny stillness, as though the world beyond the forest does not exist while within its bounds. The air carries the scent of damp earth and moss, mingling with the faint trace of smoke from unseen chimneys. Lanterns appear along the forest paths, glowing softly in the dense fog. They seem to emerge without source, guiding the footsteps of those who wander near. Some move slowly ahead, swaying with a rhythm that feels deliberate, while others flicker in place, casting long shadows across the roots and rocks that line the trails. Observers often feel compelled to follow these lights, a subtle pull that directs their path deeper into the village. The paths themselves seem mutable. Travelers report that the forest trails shift unexpectedly, curving where they should be straight. Those who attempt to navigate by memory often find themselves looping back to the same clearing or a familiar tree, as if the forest itself is alive, aware, and unwilling to reveal its secrets too easily. Mist swirls thickly between the trunks, creating a sense of isolation even when the village is near. Shadows stretch and bend, sometimes forming shapes that vanish when approached. The interplay of fog, lantern light, and shadow generates a landscape that feels dreamlike, inviting curiosity while maintaining a constant tension. The forest seems both protective and elusive, concealing the village while revealing glimpses of its existence. The village emerges gradually from the mist. Timber-framed houses with steep roofs and moss-covered walls line narrow streets. Smoke curls from chimneys, though there is no evidence of activity within. Doors are closed, yet a faint sense of movement lingers behind the windows. As though unseen inhabitants are observing visitors from within. Lanterns continue to guide travelers even once they enter the village. Their soft glow illuminates stone pathways and wooden bridges, creating reflections in puddles and frost-covered surfaces. Every corner, every alley, feels alive with potential, as though the village itself reacts to the presence of those who wander through it. There is a rhythm to the movement of light and shadow, subtle yet pervasive, drawing attention to details often missed in ordinary experience. Sound in Mistwood Cross is muted but deliberate. The crunch of footsteps along the forest floor. The distant rustle of leaves. And the occasional snap of a branch. Create a quiet symphony that amplifies awareness. These auditory cues reinforce the impression that the forest and village are in communication, guiding and observing without overt interaction. The junction itself holds the village's most enigmatic phenomena. Trails diverge in multiple directions, some leading deeper into the forest, others curling back toward the village in impossible loops. Those attempting to chart a path quickly realize that logic does not apply here, and the best course is to follow the lanterns or allow the forest's rhythm to dictate movement. Mistwood Cross possesses an enduring sense of history. Every building, every cobblestone, appears deliberately placed. As if crafted to maintain balance within the forest. Shadows cast by the trees fall precisely along streets and walls, highlighting the village's features in a way that feels intentional. Almost choreographed. Travelers experience a quiet reverence. Sensing that the village has preserved generations of memory. Embedded in the structures and the very soil. Visitors frequently encounter fleeting figures along the paths or in the mist. Some appear at the edges of vision, darting behind trees or disappearing across bridges. Their presence is never threatening, often playful or neutral, but undeniably real. Observers are left with the impression of a community that exists parallel to the visible village, one that coexists with the physical space while remaining largely invisible. Footsteps in the mud or snow often appear without explanation, sometimes following the traveler, other times leading in directions that encourage exploration. Trails vanish as quickly as they form, leaving only the suggestion of a presence that is both guiding and elusive. The village seems to reward patience, offering glimpses of its mysteries without revealing them fully. Night deepens the enchantment of Mistwood Cross. Fog thickens, lanterns glow brighter against the darkness. Shadows lengthen across streets and forest edges. Observers report a heightened sense of awareness. A feeling that every movement is noted and reflected by the environment. Even familiar paths feel new, as though the village and forest subtly adjust to the perspective of each traveler. The experience of wandering Mistwood Cross is both mesmerizing and humbling. The interplay of light, shadow, fog, and sound creates a sensory tapestry that captivates and disorients simultaneously. Travelers leave with memories of trails that shift, lanterns that guide, and figures that vanish when approached. The village impresses itself on the mind not through spectacle, but through quiet, persistent suggestion, leaving an impression that endures long after departure. Mistwood Cross remains at the junction of two forest trails, patient and enigmatic. It is a village that exists in dialogue with the forest, shaping paths, shadows, and light to maintain its mysterious presence. Travelers are reminded that not all places can be fully understood, and that some journeys are defined as much by the paths themselves as by the destination. The village endures, a living enigma where perception is tested, curiosity rewarded, and the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary. Nightshade Hollow rests at the edge of a dense forest, a village where the boundary between the living and the forgotten feels remarkably thin. Its streets are narrow and lined with houses whose paint has peeled and windows have long been shuttered. The architecture tells stories of generations past, yet the life within seems to have shifted elsewhere, leaving only echoes of activity in its wake. Travelers entering the village often notice an immediate quiet that is deeper than ordinary stillness. Every footstep on the cobblestones carries unnaturally far, amplified by the empty spaces around them. Abandoned houses stand with doors slightly ajar, inviting curiosity while warning caution. Those who enter report hearing footsteps within, faint at first, then growing in clarity, moving across floors where no one stands. The sounds are precise, as though someone invisible is pacing in anticipation. Doors in Nightshade Hollow behave unpredictably. A gentle push may allow entry, only for the door to slam shut seconds later without warning. Other times, doors swing open with no one nearby, a sudden gesture that startles and confounds. These movements are not violent but deliberate, reinforcing the sense that the village itself is aware of those who traverse its streets. The presence of these subtle interactions transforms ordinary structures into living entities, shaping an atmosphere that is both mysterious and immersive. Villagers in Nightshade Hollow contribute further to the unsettling nature of the place. Some residents are rarely, if ever, seen during daylight hours. Their lives unfold in shadow, observed only by fleeting glimpses at dusk or under the faint glow of lanterns. Their habits and movements remain a puzzle, and they seem to belong as much to the darkness as the houses that surround them. Visitors often sense these unseen observers, a quiet awareness that eyes are following their steps even when nothing is visible. The air in Nightshade Hollow carries an unusual weight. A chill drifts from the surrounding forest, weaving between houses and through alleyways. Occasionally, faint sounds of whispers accompany the wind, impossible to trace to any source. These whispers, combined with the rhythmic creak of floorboards and the occasional slam of a door, create an auditory landscape that blurs the line between reality and imagination. Every corner, every hallway, feels charged with subtle tension. Abandoned homes hold particular fascination. Furniture remains arranged as though waiting for occupancy, tables set with plates and cups untouched for decades. Shadows gather in corners, elongating and shifting as though alive. Some travelers report glimpsing figures moving behind frosted windows or reflected in cracked mirrors, only for the images to vanish when approached. The effect is immersive and disorienting, creating a sensation that the village preserves fragments of lives long past alongside the lives of those still present. The forest that borders Nightshade Hollow contributes to its unique atmosphere. Fog occasionally creeps in from the woods, softening outlines and muting sounds. The fog clings to the cobblestones and creeps into doorways, blurring the distinction between indoors and out. The interplay of mist, shadow, and light heightens the sense that Nightshade Hollow exists in a space removed from ordinary perception, a village that follows rules entirely its own. Night in the village amplifies the uncanny, making navigation both captivating and disorienting. And occasional glimpses of figures on upper floors or along rooftops reinforce the impression of constant observation. The village at night feels alive, attentive, and aware. Despite the unsettling environment, Nightshade Hollow is not overtly hostile. The phenomena encounterita, the footsteps, slamming doors, fleeting figures, and rare villagers of the night, carry an enigmatic presence rather than threat. It is a place where the boundary between seen and unseen is porous. Where every sound and shadow suggests life beyond ordinary perception. The village engages those who enter, inviting careful attention and reflection on what lies hidden in plain sight. By dawn, much of the intensity softens. Shadows retreat to corners. Footsteps fade. And doors rest as they will until night returns. The forest resumes its quiet dominance. And the village appears peaceful. Though travelers leave with the impression that it continues to watch. Remember, and respond. Nightshade Hollow exists in cycles. Alternating between visible tranquility and heightened awareness. Preserving a space where the forgotten, the hidden, and the nocturnal converge. Nightshade Hollow is more than a village. It is a living memory, a theater of subtle activity and quiet observation. Its abandoned houses, nocturnal residents, shifting shadows, and imperceptible movements create an immersive experience for all who enter. Travelers leave carrying the sensation of a place alive in ways that defy conventional understanding. A village that exists not only in the world of the living but in the delicate space where the unseen quietly endures. Gloomfern is a village that exists in a perpetual haze, shrouded in fog even during the brightest hours of the day. Sunlight struggles to penetrate the mist, casting a muted glow across cobblestone streets and the weathered facades of old buildings. The fog clings to the ground and coils around the structures, softening edges and creating the illusion of depth where none exists. Visitors often pause, feeling as though they have stepped into a world suspended between reality and dream. Figures roam the streets silently, moving with deliberate grace. Their presence is fleeting and intangible, as though the village itself conjures them from shadow and memory. Travelers catch glimpses of movement at the periphery of vision, only to turn and find empty streets. The figures do not interact, yet they seem aware of those who walk among them, observing with an intensity that is both unsettling and magnetic. Windows along the streets reveal glimpses of pale faces pressed against the glass. These appearances are brief, almost accidental, yet they leave a lasting impression on anyone who witnesses them. The faces vary in expression, from curiosity to sorrow, as though the village preserves emotions long past. Observers often find themselves staring back, feeling an inexplicable connection to a presence that is simultaneously human and otherworldly. The architecture of Gloomfern reflects centuries of quiet life. Stone walls, timber beams, and sagging rooftops give the village a sense of age and permanence. While the fog imbues every surface with a softened, mysterious quality. Doors and shutters are often closed, yet lights flicker faintly within, suggesting activity where none should exist. Shadows stretch unnaturally along walls, sometimes moving independently of any physical source, and the effect creates an atmosphere that is both eerie and captivating. Paths twist unpredictably through the village. Streets curve unexpectedly, alleys open where none were before. And courtyards reveal themselves in ways that challenge logic. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The fog enhances this disorientation, distorting perspective and masking familiar landmarks. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The fog enhances this disorientation, distorting perspective and masking familiar landmarks. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The fog enhances this disorientation, distorting perspective and masking familiar landmarks. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The fog enhances this disorientation, distorting perspective and masking familiar landmarks. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The fog enhances this disorientation, distorting perspective and masking familiar landmarks. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The fog enhances this disorientation, distorting perspective and masking familiar landmarks. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The fog enhances this disorientation, distorting perspective and masking familiar landmarks. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The fog enhances this disorientation, distorting perspective and masking familiar landmarks. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The fog enhances this disorientation, distorting perspective and masking familiar landmarks. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The fog enhances this disorientation, distorting perspective and masking familiar landmarks. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The fog enhances this disorientation, distorting perspective and masking familiar landmarks. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The fog enhances this disorientation, distorting perspective and masking familiar landmarks. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The fog enhances this disorientation, distorting perspective and masking familiar landmarks. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The fog enhances this disorientation, distorting perspective and masking familiar landmarks. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The fog enhances this disorientation, distorting perspective and masking familiar landmarks. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The fog enhances this disorientation, distorting perspective and masking familiar landmarks. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The fog enhances this disorientation, distorting perspective and masking familiar landmarks. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The fog enhances this disorientation, distorting perspective and masking familiar landmarks. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The fog enhances this disorientation, distorting perspective and masking familiar landmarks. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The fog enhances this disorientation, distorting perspective and masking familiar landmarks. Each turn carries the possibility of surprise, a shift in the landscape that feels deliberate and almost sentient. Travelers report losing a sense of direction, finding themselves retracing steps or emerging in areas they did not intend to visit. The village's silence is profound, yet it is never complete. Footsteps echo unnaturally on the cobblestones, sometimes preceding or following the traveler. The soft rush of wind through the mist carries whispers that are impossible to locate, fragments of conversation or distant laughter that vanish when approached. Even the faint drip of water from gutters or leaves is amplified in the quiet, adding to the sense that Gloomfern exists outside ordinary experience. At night, the village takes on an even more spectral quality. The fog thickens, and lights within homes glow more clearly, casting muted reflections on the wet stone streets. Figures continue to roam, their movements fluid and silent. Pale faces appear at windows, peering out with an intensity that is almost tangible. Shadows stretch along walls and across streets, shifting with a life of their own. Visitors describe a feeling of being observed, though no one approaches. The experience is immersive, both beautiful and disquieting. The history of Gloomfern is as elusive as the village itself. Some accounts suggest it was once a bustling settlement, home to families who lived in harmony with the surrounding forest and hills. Others speak of tragedies and disappearances, events that may have caused the village to slip into its current liminal state. Records are scarce, and those who attempt to document its past often find their notes incomplete, the details as shifting and elusive as the fog itself. Travelers and researchers who visit Gloomfern report similar experiences. Cameras and recording devices capture shadows that have no source and figures that vanish between frames. Audio equipment often picks up whispers, footsteps, and faint voices, even when no one is present. Some devices record pale faces briefly reflected in windows or on wet cobblestones. These phenomena, subtle yet consistent, reinforce the village's reputation as a place where the ordinary and the extraordinary coexist. Despite the unsettling qualities, Gloomfern attracts those drawn to mystery and the unknown. Historians, photographers, and curious travelers come to explore, eager to experience the village firsthand. Each visitor leaves with a collection of impressions, glimpses of figures in the fog, fleeting expressions in windows, and the echo of footsteps along twisting streets. The village lingers in memory long after departure, a quiet imprint of wonder and unease that continues to provoke thought and imagination. Gloomfern exists as a threshold between worlds. Its fog, its wandering figures, and its fleeting faces at windows create an atmosphere where perception is constantly challenged. Every step along its streets feels charged with history and memory, every shadow and whisper suggesting layers of life that continue unseen. Visitors quickly understand that the village is not just a location, but an experience, a space that reveals itself only to those willing to notice its smallest details. That the village is not just a location, but an experience, a space that reveals itself only to those willing to notice its smallest details. Next time a road winds through dense forest or along misty hills. And a small village appears through the haze. Yet figures roam silently. Windows may reveal pale faces that vanish before full attention is given. Fog may obscure what is near and distant, leaving visitors to navigate a world where reality and perception blur. Gloom fern waits quietly. Its streets may be empty, yet figures roam silently. Windows may reveal pale faces that vanish before full attention is given. Fog may obscure what is near and distant, leaving visitors to navigate a world where reality and perception blur. Gloom fern waits quietly. Its streets may be empty, yet figures roam silently. Windows may reveal pale faces that vanish before full attention is given. Fog may obscure what is near and distant, leaving visitors to navigate a world where reality and perception blur. Gloom fern waits quietly. Its streets may be empty, yet figures roam silently. Windows may reveal pale faces that vanish before full attention is given. Fog may obscure what is near and distant, leaving visitors to navigate a world where reality and perception blur. Gloom fern waits quietly. Its streets may be empty, yet figures roam silently. Windows may reveal pale faces that vanish before full attention is given. Fog may obscure what is near and distant, leaving visitors to navigate a world where reality and perception blur. Gloom fern waits quietly. Its streets may be empty, yet figures roam silently. Windows may reveal pale faces that vanish before full attention is given. Fog may obscure what is near and distant, leaving visitors to navigate a world where reality and perception blur. Gloom fern waits quietly. Its streets may be empty, yet figures roam silently. Windows may reveal pale faces that vanish before full attention is given. Fog may obscure what is near and distant, leaving visitors to navigate a world where reality and perception blur. Gloom fern waits quietly. Its streets may be empty, yet figures roam silently. Windows may reveal pale faces that vanish before full attention is given. Fog may obscure what is near and distant, leaving visitors to navigate a world where reality and perception blur. Gloom fern waits quietly. Its streets may be empty, yet figures roam silently. Windows may reveal pale faces that vanish before full attention is given. Fog may obscure what is near and distant, leaving visitors to navigate a world where reality and perception blur. Gloom fern waits quietly. Its streets may be empty, yet figures roam silently. Windows may reveal pale faces that vanish before full attention is given. Fog may obscure what is near and distant. Thorn Vale is a village hidden deep within a valley where the sunlight struggles to reach the streets. Vines curl around doorways or stretching across windows in ways that defy natural growth. That Thorn Vale itself is alive. Shadows gather behind the vines, forming shapes that are unsettling in their familiarity. Occasionally, they resemble faces, eyes and features that seem human yet impossibly distant. Visitors report brief moments of recognition, a fleeting impression of someone they know, only for the visage to dissolve as quickly as it appeared. The shifting shadows, combined with the creeping foliage, create an environment where the ordinary rules of perception seem suspended. Every corner of the village becomes a stage for the subtle interplay of light, darkness, and movement. A low whisper threads through the streets, faint and elusive, carrying names unknown to those who hear them. The sound is not always intelligible, yet it evokes a sense of history and presence, as if the village remembers those who have passed through and beyond. Visitors often pause, straining to identify the source, only to find the street empty, the whispers fading into the soft rustle of leaves and the subtle sway of vines. The auditory landscape reinforces the sense that Thornvale is a living, breathing entity. The architecture of the village reflects its unique character. Houses are built of weathered stone and dark timber, their exteriors partially obscured by the ever-encroaching greenery. Windows are narrow and shuttered, and doorways are framed by twisting vines that seem to grow denser with distance from the main paths. Even pathways themselves shift subtly underfoot, cobblestones settling and tilting as if aware of those who walk upon them. Every structural element contributes to the sense that Thornvale is not merely a place, but an organism in constant, silent motion. As night falls, the atmosphere becomes more pronounced. Fog creeps through alleys and low-lying areas, mingling with the shadows cast by lanterns. And the faint glow of moss along the walls. Vines stretch toward the light, twisting around posts and railings, their movement imperceptible. Until one glances away and then back. Shapes emerge briefly in the darkness, hints of figures moving beyond vision, yet no footsteps echo, no doors open or close. Visitors often feel subtle touches, a brush against a shoulder or the light caress of leaves along their skin, fleeting and almost imperceptible. These sensations evoke a sense of presence without form, as if the village is interacting with those who enter, testing their awareness and respect for the space. Even the wind seems guided, whispering through the alleyways with purpose, carrying the low hum of life that is not human yet undeniably sentient. Shadows continue their silent dance behind the vines. Figures seem to emerge from the foliage only to disappear when approached. The fleeting glimpses leave a lingering impression, a memory of something familiar and yet ungraspable. Some travelers have reported glimpsing the silhouettes of long-lost acquaintances, ancestors, or strangers whose faces feel somehow personal, but none can claim certainty. Thornvale exists in a liminal space between the remembered and the imagined, between the living and the echoes of the past. Sounds within the village amplify its presence. A door creaks softly without opening. Leaves shift and scrape against stone walls in rhythmic patterns. The whispering names weave through the streets like threads, touching the ears of those who listen too intently. The combination of subtle movement, shifting shadows, and quiet sound creates an immersive experience that is at once unsettling and captivating. Visitors often find themselves moving slowly, consciously aware of every step, every glance, and every rustle in the darkness. Despite its eerie qualities, Thornvale draws curiosity and awe. The village seems to invite exploration, yet it also enforces caution. Every pathway, every vine, every shadow feels purposeful. Those who linger too long sense a threshold, a boundary maintained by the subtle intelligence of the place. The intertwining of natural growth and spectral presence creates a unique environment where every detail tells part of a story that cannot be fully known. By morning, the village softens under diffused light. Shadows shrink, whispers fade, and vines settle into stillness. The streets appear tranquil, almost ordinary, yet the memory of the night's movements lingers in the minds of those who witnessed them. The faces in the shadows, the brush of unseen hands, and the quiet whisper of unknown names remain, etching Thornvale into the consciousness of anyone who passes through. Thornvale endures as a village both mysterious and alive. A place where the ordinary and the supernatural intertwine seamlessly. Every vine, every shadow, every whispered name contributes to a living narrative. One that transforms the village from mere geography into an experience of perception, memory, and lingering wonder. Visitors leave changed, carrying with them the impression of a place that observes, remembers, and waits patiently, hidden yet present, for those who come seeking its secrets. Silent mist rests deep within a valley shrouded by low-hanging fog. The village square lies deserted, cobblestones slick with condensation. And every building around it seems to pause in quiet anticipation. The air is thick, carrying the scent of damp wood, moss, and cold stone. There is a stillness that feels deliberate, as though time itself slows in this place. Lanterns float above the square without wires, chains, or visible support. Their warm glow casts shifting pools of light across the wet cobblestones, illuminating corners that would otherwise remain in shadow. The lanterns drift slowly, moving in patterns that seem deliberate, as if guiding unseen travelers along invisible paths. Observers often feel compelled to follow, drawn by the gentle sway of the floating lights, yet they quickly realize that the square's emptiness is not an absence but a presence of its own. The silence of silent mist is profound. Footsteps echo unnaturally when they cross the square. And even the softest sound feels magnified. Travelers speak of a sensation of being watched, as though unseen eyes track each movement. The feeling is subtle yet persistent, never aggressive, but enough to heighten awareness of every shadow and shimmer of light. Buildings lining the square are old, their facades coated in moss and frost. Windows are dark, yet faint reflections occasionally move behind the glass, glimpses of figures that vanish when looked at directly. The architecture seems to observe rather than conceal, preserving a record of the village's history within its walls. Every doorway, archway, and rooftop contributes to the sense that silent mist is both a physical space and a living presence. The fog itself plays a critical role in the village's atmosphere. Shapes appear within it, suggesting movement where none exists, and disappear as suddenly as they arrive. Observers feel disoriented, unsure of distance or direction, as the mist distorts perception and blurs the line between reality and imagination. Lanterns move with gentle purpose. Some hover just above head height, while others drift near rooftops, their glow brushing the edges of timber and stone. Every flicker and sway seems intentional, a subtle choreography designed to reveal the square in fragments rather than as a whole. Footsteps occasionally appear in the mist, though no traveler leaves them. Prints on wet stone emerge, lead across the square, and vanish into fog without explanation. Travelers attempting to follow them find themselves guided in circles, retracing their steps without realizing it. The village seems aware of this, subtly redirecting movement, shaping experience, and testing perception. The quiet is punctuated by faint sounds that cannot be traced. A soft clink of metal, the whisper of fabric, or the distant rustle of leaves carries through the square, amplified by the stillness. These sounds suggest life, yet when observers turn to locate the source, nothing appears. The effect is disorienting but strangely captivating, a reminder that silent mist exists according to its own rules, independent of the ordinary world. Corners of the square reveal hidden details when viewed in the glow of the floating lanterns. Stone benches appear older than memory, carvings in walls depict patterns that suggest movement. Frost-laden trees sway slightly even without wind. Observers report fleeting glimpses of figures at these edges, silhouettes that vanish when approached, leaving only a sense of presence, of life continuing unseen. The village square is also marked by a strange rhythm. The lanterns adrift, the Foggy's flow, and the occasional distant sound combine to create a pattern that is almost musical. Travelers feel themselves moving in tune with it, pausing at the right moments, turning at suggested angles, and slowing their pace to match the subtle pulse of the environment. Silent mist communicates without words, teaching observation, patience, and awareness. Night deepens, and the mist thickens, casting the square in an otherworldly glow. Lanterns become more vivid, their light reflected in the wet cobblestones. Shadows lengthen unnaturally, stretching across doorways and archways. Observers describe a feeling of being simultaneously part of the village and outside it, an outsider and participant in a carefully maintained rhythm of light, movement, and presence. The floating lanterns sometimes cluster, forming paths that seem to lead beyond the square, into alleys and hidden corners of the village. Travelers feel a gentle pull, an invitation to explore, yet every path seems to circle back eventually. Silent mist does not allow hurried passage. It requires attention, encouraging visitors to engage fully with its space, to perceive the subtleties of shadow, light, and sound that make the square both haunting and mesmerizing. When dawn approaches, the mist recedes gradually. Lanterns lower and drift closer to the ground, before fading completely. The square appears ordinary once more, though. Prints, traces of movement, and the lingering impression of unseen observers remain. Travelers leave with memories that feel almost dreamlike, carrying with them the knowledge that Silent Mist is a space that exists both within the ordinary world and beyond it. Silent Mist endures as a village of quiet enigmas. Its floating lanterns, fog-laden streets, and ever-watchful presence create an environment where perception is tested and wonder thrives. Visitors leave forever changed, aware that the ordinary can conceal extraordinary phenomena, and that some places are designed not to be understood fully, but to be experienced, observed, and remembered. In the subtle interplay of shadow, light, and mist. Hollowfern Crossing is a small village tucked into a quiet valley, where the edges of the forest meet open fields. A set of rusted train tracks runs along the outskirts, stretching into the horizon. By day, the tracks are silent and empty, overgrown with weeds and framed by splintered wooden ties. No train has passed here for decades, yet the village seems to exist in quiet anticipation of movement that never arrives. As night falls, the atmosphere changes. Travelers report the unmistakable sound of an approaching train echoing through the valley. The rumble begins softly, a distant vibration that grows steadily, resonating in the ground beneath their feet. Windows rattle lightly, and the air carries a faint metallic scent. Those familiar with railroads recognize the cadence of wheels on tracks. Yet the knowledge that no train has run here for years amplifies unease. Figures sometimes appear on the tracks, silhouetted against the faint glow of moonlight. Witnesses describe a lingering impression, the sensation of being observed and acknowledged in a way that transcends ordinary reality. These apparitions appear human in form but carry a subtle otherworldliness, movements precise yet impossibly fleeting. When approached, they vanish as if dissolved into the night air. The tracks themselves seem to carry memory. Each tie and rail holds the weight of countless journeys. Echoes of locomotives that once traversed the crossing. And the lives intertwined with them. Travelers report hearing whistles and the distant clatter of wheels that fade as quickly as they arrive. The village itself seems attuned to the sounds. Every building and fence post vibrating with a history that remains active in ways invisible to the eye. The forest surrounding Hollowfern Crossing contributes to the haunting quality of the night. Trees lean close to the tracks, their branches swaying without wind, casting moving shadows that appear to follow observers. Mist often rises from the fields, curling along the tracks and softening the outlines of the figures on the rails. The interplay of fog, shadow, and sound creates an atmosphere that feels simultaneously alive and suspended, a world balance between memory and imagination. Visitors often find themselves drawn to the tracks despite the knowledge of danger. The figures, the sound of approaching trains, and the subtle vibrations compel attention and careful observation. Every detail seems intentional, as though the village and its abandoned railway are engaged in a quiet dialogue with anyone willing to notice. The phenomenon is neither threatening nor violent, but the precision and consistency of the experiences leave a lasting impression. Buildings near the tracks reflect the change in atmosphere at night. Windows glow faintly, often without light sources inside. Doors creak open or shut with timing that seems connected to the sounds of the approaching train. Fences sway, and loose boards vibrate with the rumble that grows and recedes along the tracks. Every element of the village participates in the sensory experience, reinforcing the presence of something beyond ordinary understanding. Time in Hollowfern Crossing seems to stretch and bend during these nocturnal events. Minutes can feel like hours, and the distance between points along the tracks feels distorted. Observers describe a sense of copyright déjà vu, as if the tracks are replaying moments from the past. Shadows shift with uncanny coordination, and the apparitions sometimes appear in positions that suggest prior encounters. As though the night itself remembers those who enter. Despite the eeriness, the village is not dangerous. The events are subtle, an invitation to awareness rather than threat. Travelers are left with impressions rather than physical evidence, memories that linger long after they leave the valley. The figures, the sounds, and the shifting shadows create an experience that is immersive and contemplative, fostering both curiosity and caution. By dawn, the haunting phenomena recede. The train sounds fade into silence. The figures disappear. And the mist lifts from the fields. The tracks return to their daytime stillness, seemingly inert and ordinary. Yet the memory of the night persists. Carried in the mind and imagination of those who witnessed the fleeting moments. The past remains alive along the rails. Preserved in sound, shadow, and movement. Leaves travelers with the sense that the past remains alive. Along the rails, preserved in sound, shadow, and movement. A sense that the past remains alive. Along the rails, preserved in sound, shadow, and movement. Leaves travelers with a lasting impression. Of a world where the past lingers. Hollowfern Crossing leaves travelers with the sense that the past remains alive along the rails, preserved in sound, shadow, and movement. Hollowfern Crossing is more than a village beside unused train tracks. It is a threshold where memory and reality intersect. Where the echoes of journeys past linger. And where every sound and shadow carries meaning beyond what the eye can see. Visitors leave with a quiet awareness that the tracks are not empty. That the village is not silent. And that some places continue to live in ways that defy explanation. Preserving moments that are at once ephemeral and eternal. Dark Pine Village is a settlement hidden deep within a forest so dense that sunlight barely reaches the forest floor. Towering pines block the sky, their thick branches entwined overhead, creating a permanent twilight even at midday. Shadows stretch across the narrow streets, mingling with mist that coils between the buildings like slow-moving specters. Visitors often describe a sense of isolation, as if the village exists apart from the world beyond the forest. Figures in cloaks move silently along the streets. Their faces are hidden beneath hoods, and their movements are deliberate, almost ceremonial. Travelers report catching glimpses of them in peripheral vision, disappearing when directly observed. These figures lend the village an otherworldly feeling, a sense that time and life here follow rules different from those outside the forest. The buildings of Dark Pine Village are aged and worn. Timber and stone form walls darkened by centuries of moisture and shadow. Roofs sag under the weight of moss and fallen needles. And narrow windows are often shuttered, revealing only faint glimmers of light from within. Doors seem unusually heavy, and their hinges creak in the stillness, accentuating the silence that pervades the village. Every surface, every corner, appears imbued with history and the weight of countless unspoken events. Paths twist unpredictably through Dark Pine Village. Streets bend unexpectedly, courtyards appear where none were visible before. And alleys seem to shift subtly, disorienting those who attempt to map the village. Travelers report feeling drawn along certain routes, as if the village itself is guiding them. Footsteps echo unnaturally on the cobblestones, sometimes preceding or following the traveler, enhancing the sense that the forest and village are alive and aware of every movement. Chanting drifts through the streets at irregular intervals carried on a breeze that seems to have no origin. The voices are low and rhythmic, reverberating through the trees and along the walls of the village. Some visitors have attempted to follow the sound only to find that it vanishes before they can locate its source. Others hear whispers alongside the chant's fragmented words that are impossible to decipher yet convey urgency and caution. The effect is mesmerizing and disorienting, instilling both curiosity and caution in those who explore. The forest surrounding Dark Pine Village enhances the sense of seclusion. Pines rise in dense clusters, their needles forming a thick canopy that muffles sound and distorts perception. Mist curls along the ground, shifting with every step and clinging to clothing and hair. Sunlight filters weakly through the branches, casting dappled patterns that create illusions of movement. Shadows twist and lengthen unnaturally, and familiar shapes often appear unfamiliar in the dim, filtered light. Visitors frequently report a sense of being watched. Figures in the distance, glimpsed between the trees or at the edge of alleyways, remain motionless yet seem aware of every observer. Even when the cloaked figures vanish from sight, the sensation lingers. Footsteps, whispers, and faint rustling accompany the presence, creating an immersive experience where perception is constantly challenged. Cameras and recording devices capture phenomena not visible to the eye, including fleeting shadows, shifting lights, and faint chanting, reinforcing the village's reputation as a place beyond ordinary reality. The atmosphere in Dark Pine Village is heavy with history and unseen life. Every building, every street, and every tree appears to retain echoes of past events. A subtle energy woven into the fabric of the village. Even the air carries a distinct quality, cool and slightly damp, tinged with the scent of pine and the faint musk of moss-covered stone. Time within the village seems altered. Hours may pass unnoticed, with the persistent fog and shadow making day and night feel indistinguishable. Some visitors find themselves wandering familiar streets only to emerge in unexpected locations, as though the village has subtly rearranged itself. The effect is subtle yet disorienting, heightening the sense that Dark Pine Village operates under its own rules, separate from the outside world. Despite its mysterious and unsettling qualities, Dark Pine Village is not overtly threatening. The cloaked figures do not pursue or engage with visitors, and the chanting, though eerie, does not carry aggression. Instead, the village creates an environment that commands attention, observation, and respect. Those who approach it with caution often leave with profound impressions of beauty intertwined with unease, a lasting memory of a place that feels alive in ways difficult to explain. Dark Pine Village exists as a threshold between the ordinary and the extraordinary. Its dense forest, perpetual twilight, cloaked figures, and drifting chants combine to create an experience that is both captivating and haunting. Travelers emerge with the echo of unseen voices, the impression of being watched, and the lingering sense of a village that remembers its past while continuing to move in subtle, inexplicable ways. Next time a road winds through dense pine forests, and a village appears shrouded in mist and shadow, consider Dark Pine Village. Its streets may seem deserted, yet figures in cloaks wander silently. Faint chanting may carry on the wind. And shadows may stretch unnaturally along stone walls and cobblestones. The village waits quietly, inviting those who are attentive to notice its mysteries, experience its atmosphere, and leave with memories that linger long after they return to the ordinary world. Fogvale Station rests at the edge of a quiet village, its weathered structure standing as a relic of a time long past. The paint peels from the walls, and the wooden beams of the platforms sag under the weight of decades. Moss and creeping ivy wrap themselves around the corners of the building, softening its harsh angles while adding an air of melancholy. The station has not seen a train in years, yet those who wander near speak of sensations that suggest it is far from abandoned. Footsteps echo along the platforms, soft and deliberate, yet when approached, no one is there. Travelers describe the sound as measured and persistent, like the rhythm of a clock, moving from one platform to another, pausing and resuming without explanation. The wind carries a faint whistle, a distant hint of wheels on tracks, though the rails are rusted and broken. Every sound reinforces the impression that the station remains alive in some spectral sense, maintaining routines from a past it refuses to release. Shadows appear along the platforms, waiting silently as if for trains that no longer exist. They are human in shape, elongated by flickering lantern light or the uneven glow of the setting sun. Sometimes the shadows seem to move independently, drifting along the platforms or peering into empty carriages. Those who observe them report a chilling familiarity, the sense that the figures belong to a story untold, perhaps passengers whose journeys were never completed. The interior of Fogvale Station is a labyrinth of silence and fading echoes. Benches, worn smooth by years of use, sit empty, yet an impression of presence lingers. Doors creak open with no wind to move them. And the faint scent of smoke and oil drifts through the air, remnants of trains long gone. Flickering lights cast shadows that stretch unnaturally along the walls, adding to the feeling that the station is more than it appears. That it holds memories capable of reaching out to anyone who enters. Ghostly passengers have been reported boarding spectral trains. Observers described figures in period clothing, their faces pale, expressions distant. They step toward waiting carriages as if following a routine, passing through doors that seem solid yet offer no resistance. When the train departs, there is no sound of wheels or engine, only a fleeting shimmer in the air. Witnesses speak of a profound sense of loss, a feeling that the station carries the grief and anticipation of countless travelers frozen in time. The tracks themselves are overgrown and warped, yet the rails reflect light as if they were polished. Shadows move along the lines, sometimes appearing to converge at points that suggest a destination beyond comprehension. Fog drifts through the station at all hours, settling on the benches, the rails, and the platforms, softening the edges of reality. The mist seems to act as both veil and guide, concealing movement and revealing it just enough to unsettle those who venture close. At night, the atmosphere becomes even more pronounced. Lanterns glow faintly, illuminating the edges of the platforms and the skeletal frames of abandoned carriages. Footsteps echo louder in the darkness, and the distant sound of a train horn drifts from an unseen source. Shadows gather near the tracks, elongating and twisting, yet never fully solidifying. The village surrounding the station grows still, as if the night itself respects the boundaries of the place, allowing the station to exist in a separate reality. Visitors often report sensations of touch, subtle and fleeting, as if someone brushed past their shoulder or tapped lightly on a railing. The feeling is gentle but deliberate, enough to raise awareness of a presence without causing panic. Combined with the shifting shadows, the faint sounds of movement, and the cool mist that rolls off the tracks, the experience is immersive and disorienting. Fogvale Station asserts itself not through aggression but through the quiet persistence of its spectral life. Architecture reinforces the eerie aura. The roof sags unevenly, casting crooked shadows. Windows are cracked and clouded, yet faint silhouettes can sometimes be seen beyond the glass. The benches and ticket counters show signs of long disuse. But subtle changes appear to those who look closely: a newspaper shifted, a suitcase tilted, the faint imprint of a hand on dust. Every detail contributes to the impression that the station remembers, that it responds to those who enter and observes without interruption. Time seems altered within Fogvale Station. Hours can pass unnoticed, or moments feel stretched unnaturally long. The rhythm of footsteps, the movement of shadows, and the arrival of phantom trains create a narrative of suspended time. Visitors leave with the impression that they have crossed into a place where the ordinary rules do not apply. A location preserved in memory and mist, shaped by the actions of those who once traveled its lines and those who linger in spirit still. By dawn, the fog begins to lift, and the station returns to its quiet, abandoned state. The shadows fade, the lanterns dim, and the faint sounds of ghostly footsteps recede into silence. Yet the memory of the night lingers in the minds of those who witnessed it. The whispers of passengers, the echo of vanished trains, and the fleeting impression of presence ensure that Fogvale Station is not forgotten. Fogvale Station endures as a place suspended between the living and the spectral. Every shadow, every whisper, every movement along the tracks contributes to the story of a station. Of lives intertwined with rails and mist, and of the quiet persistence of memory. Those who venture near may never fully understand it, but they will carry the sensation of its haunting with them long after they leave. Valewood Hollow lies hidden deep within a dense forest, a village where the streets twist and wind in ways that defy logic. Travelers who enter quickly realize that familiar paths seem to fold back on themselves, corners appear where none existed moments before, and houses emerge from the fog as if by magic. The village feels alive, aware of those who wander its streets, subtly guiding and shaping perception with every step. Lanterns hang along the crooked streets, their light warm yet eerie, illuminating facades that were never visible before. Windows glint in the soft glow, and doorways appear where none seem to exist, inviting exploration while simultaneously disorienting observers. Shadows stretch and bend, following travelers in silent patterns, sometimes merging with the fog that drifts lazily between buildings. The streets themselves seem to shift beneath one's feet. Cobbled paths lengthen and shorten unpredictably. Narrow alleys curve into new directions. And open squares appear and vanish as if the village is breathing. Visitors often feel a growing sense of vertigo, the world folding in on itself. And lose track of how long they have been wandering. Each step brings both revelation and confusion. A delicate balance between curiosity and unease. The houses in Valewood Hollow appear ancient, yet timeless. Timbered walls are covered in ivy and moss, and windows are framed with intricate carvings that suggest care and craftsmanship. Some buildings seem hollowed out, their interiors obscured by shadows, while others glow faintly from within, though no flame or light source is visible. Others glow faintly from within, though no flame or light source is visible. Observers feel the presence of inhabitants, though the streets remain empty and silent. Lantern light dances across the cobblestones, reflecting in puddles left by unseen rain. The fog thickens in certain areas, obscuring edges of streets and creating illusions of movement where none exists. Shapes form briefly in the mist, appearing as travelers or villagers, only to dissolve when approached. The village thrives on these fleeting glimpses, offering mystery without revealing answers, drawing visitors deeper into its labyrinthine layout. Footsteps echo strangely in Valewood Hollow. A step taken on one street may reverberate down an alley that seems to appear only in that moment. Travelers describe the sensation of being followed by invisible companions, a quiet presence that mirrors their movement without ever making contact. The effect is unnerving yet compelling, adding to the village's enigmatic atmosphere. Time behaves differently here. Minutes stretch and contract unpredictably. And a single turn of a corner can leave travelers uncertain whether hours or moments have passed. Observers find themselves retracing steps unknowingly. Encountering the same corners, lanterns, and buildings again and again. The village does not merely contain space. It manipulates it. Creating an experience that is simultaneously immersive and disorienting. The fog in Valewood Hollow is never still. It drifts along streets, curling around lampposts, seeping into alleys, and rising from hidden courtyards. Curling around lampposts, seeping into alleys, and rising from hidden courtyards. Seeping into alleys, and rising from hidden courtyards. Rising from hidden courtyards. Shapes appear within it, some humanoid, others abstract, only to fade as attention focuses on them. Some humanoid, others abstract, only to fade as attention focuses on them. Others abstract, only to fade as attention focuses on them. Only to fade as attention focuses on them. The interplay of light and mist enhances the village's otherworldly quality, rendering each moment ephemeral, and making permanence seem impossible. Rendering each moment ephemeral, and making permanence seem impossible. And making permanence seem impossible. Travelers often notice small details that defy explanation. Footprints appear on wet cobblestones, yet no one is present to leave them. Lanterns swing gently despite the absence of wind. Windows reflect scenes that were never witnessed, as though the village contains layers of time, each moment overlapping with another. Observers sense that Valewood Hollow preserves memory itself, a repository of past, present, and unseen events coexisting in delicate balance. The atmosphere is charged with anticipation. Every alleyway invites exploration. Every lantern beckons further. Yet the village resists full comprehension. Travelers feel caught between fascination and unease. Drawn onward by curiosity. While aware that they may never find an exit in the conventional sense. The experience is immersive. A mixture of wonder and subtle tension. Where every observation reveals another mystery. Night transforms Valewood Hollow further. Buildings shimmer in the lamplight, some appearing closer, others farther than their true position. Shapes move at the edge of perception, teasing attention without engagement. The village feels at once welcoming and elusive, a space that encourages presence while defying control. Even the smallest elements contribute to the village's enigmatic character. Ivy trembles without wind. Puddles ripple despite still air. And faint murmurs echo through alleys. Though no source is visible. And faint murmurs echo through alleys, though no source is visible. Travelers note subtle patterns. A rhythm of light, shadow, and sound that feels intentional. As though the village itself communicates in quiet, indirect ways. Observers begin to perceive the hidden structure behind apparent chaos. A secret logic guiding every twist and turn. As dawn approaches, the fog lifts gradually. Revealing streets and houses in a softened, ordinary light. The twisting paths seem less threatening. Yet the memory of their subtle manipulation lingers. Travelers leave Valewood Hollow, carrying an impression of a place that exists partially in reality and partially in perception. A village that challenges understanding, while offering the thrill of discovery. Valewood Hollow endures as a labyrinth of streets, lanterns, and shifting time. Its twisting paths, mysterious architecture, and ephemeral phenomena create an environment where perception is tested, curiosity rewarded, and the ordinary transformed into the extraordinary. Visitors depart with questions unanswered, yet forever marked by the subtle interplay of light, shadow, and fog that defines this village, suspended between the familiar and the fantastical. Whisper Vale is a village perched at the edge of rolling hills, where the landscape gives way to a low, dense fog that never fully lifts. By day, the village appears calm, with narrow streets and stone cottages bathed in soft sunlight. Yet the true character of Whisper Vale reveals itself as evening falls, when the fog rolls in from the surrounding fields, thickening and twisting in ways that feel alive. The fog at Whisper Vale moves with subtle intention. It curls along the streets and wraps around houses, rising in gentle waves that obscure everything beyond a few steps. Within its depths, shapes sometimes emerge. Figures appear, indistinct at first, their features hidden in the mist. They beckon quietly, their gestures deliberate and inviting. Travelers who see them often feel a pull, a curiosity that defies rational thought, compelling them to move closer to the mysterious shapes. The villagers speak little of what occurs at the edge of the fog, yet tales persist. Those who follow the figures are rarely seen again. People vanish quietly, leaving behind empty homes and silent streets. The fog seems to preserve these disappearances, holding memory in its folds and carrying the impression of movement where nothing can be confirmed. Observers describe a sense of being watched even from a distance, as though the mist itself knows who is present and tracks their every step. The sensory experience of Whisper Vale is disorienting. Sounds are muffled and distorted within the fog, footsteps echoing strangely or fading entirely. Occasional whispers drift on the air, soft enough to be mistaken for imagination, yet carrying a rhythm and cadence that hints at language. Shadows shift unpredictably, stretching across cobblestones and walls in ways that defy explanation. The village transforms into a place where ordinary perception cannot be trusted, and every movement becomes a part of the unfolding mystery. The figures in the fog vary in appearance and demeanor. Some are tall and shadowy, others smaller and childlike, all indistinct and fluid. Their gestures are inviting but never threatening, drawing travelers forward without revealing intent. Those who watch them from the village edges report a strange calmness despite the unease, a sense that the figures exist between worlds, neither fully present nor entirely absent. The fog acts as a veil, concealing their true form and making every encounter both captivating and unnerving. The landscape around Whisper Vale enhances the eerie atmosphere. Trees at the forest edge bend into the fog, their branches reaching like fingers. The hills seem to shift in outline, rising and falling as though breathing. Even familiar buildings appear altered, their roofs and walls softened by the haze. Lanterns flicker weakly in the village, their light barely penetrating the thick air, creating pools of visibility that feel temporary, as if the fog will reclaim everything in moments. Travelers report a strange sense of time within the fog. Minutes stretch and contract unpredictably, and distances feel longer than they are. The figures may vanish only to reappear closer, or remain at a distance while gestures repeat endlessly. It is a place where perception bends and normal cues of reality fail. The combination of visual ambiguity, muffled sound, and subtle movement creates an immersive environment that lingers in memory long after the fog has cleared. The fog is a place where perception bends and normal cues of reality fail. A place where time and space are distorted. Where reality is twisted and distorted. And the laws of physics no longer apply. Linger in memory long after the fog has cleared. Despite the danger suggested by the tales of disappearance, the phenomenon is subtle and precise. There is no violence or aggression, only the quiet persistence of the mist and the beckoning figures. Every element of the village, from the narrow streets to the soft lights and distant hills, contributes to the sensation that Whisper Vale exists at the edge of perception, where ordinary rules do not fully apply. By dawn, the fog slowly retreats, dissipating into the surrounding fields. The figures vanish, leaving no trace beyond damp grass and the lingering sense of mystery. Streets appear ordinary once more, and the village returns to its daytime calm. Yet the memory of the night remains, etched in the minds of those who ventured near the fog. Whisper Vale leaves a lasting impression, a reminder that some places exist in liminal spaces, where reality and the unknown converge. Whisper Vale is more than a village at the edge of a fog. It is a living boundary, a threshold where curiosity and caution meet. The fog, the figures, and the disappearing travelers create an experience that is both immersive and haunting. Compelling observers to question what is real and what is imagined. For those who encounter it, Whisper Vale is a place where mystery lingers long after the sun rises. And where the unseen continues to call from within the mist. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the most haunted foggy forest villages in Oregon hidden from maps. The mist holds secrets older than any road or map. These villages exist between worlds, where time bends, and shadows move freely. Take a deep breath and let the forest quiet fade from your mind. If you ever find yourself walking through a forest in Oregon and the fog thickens, remember these villages. Some doors may open just for you. And some figures may follow silently, even when you think you are alone. Will you enter the fog or turn back before midnight? Rest well, my friend, until our next story.